welcome back to another episode of the Backlog Breakdown, a video game podcast where we seek to encourage the church and equip the church to engage with the medium of video games wisely and well. I'm one of your hosts, Nate, and I'm joined as always by my friend and brother in Christ, Joshua. Josh, how you doing, big guy?
Hey, man, doing good. How about you?
I'm okay. I mean,
Okay,
could be worse, could be better.
sure.
It's weather is just like the worst, man.
Ah,
Like
yeah.
here's something that I kind of like always kind of like I'm always amused by it. Maybe you share some of this, but it's like
hmm
it's funny to me how people are so like sort of enamored with human competence and human ability and everything else. But it's like, dude, like, you think about like just the fact that like we can't even accurately predict the weather, let alone exert any influence over it. And yet somehow we think that like, do you know what I'm saying? Like there's this sort of like weird, like dissonance, like cognitive dissonance. It's like
hmm
people are very assured of like our capability, but like then like when you
Right.
look in the face of just like weather and like
Yeah.
nature, you're
You
like,
you can't
nah,
even
dog.
tell whether it's gonna rain tomorrow or not. That's weird.
You're the worst. It's like I'm
Unless
I'm
you
trying
use
to sort of like
chemtrails,
something
you might be able
entertaining and
to.
profound, and you're just like, here, let me just insert some like puns, and
You
make
know,
everything stupid.
when it
Um,
rains, it pours, man.
you're the worst. But no, man. We've actually things have been like okay. Like I'm just kind of like
Sweet.
uh we're sort of in an okay state. Yeah, like I have not had
Nice.
anything break down in the last
Hey,
week or so.
we'll take it, right?
Yeah, so I'll
That's
take the
good.
win, man. I'll take
hmm
the win. But speaking of just how things have been, I really want to know how it's been since we last spoke. So like
Yeah.
what's the skinny? What's the is it
Yeah.
411? I don't know.
Oh yeah. I believe it is 411. I mean, a bunch of stuff has happened. Oh yeah. We had a dog last time we talked. Yeah, so he's getting used to the
It's
family. That's super fun.
he Yeah, I was gonna say like last time we talked, he was still like a little like jittery, a little skittish, whatever.
Yes. Yeah. He's that way in new situations, but he's definitely gotten used to the family. He has puppy energy. So he likes to have fun, likes to run around, likes to nip at you with his little puppy teeth. So he's given the kids a few. They have not enjoyed it when he wants to gnaw on them.
Dude,
But
puppy teeth are and they're sharp, sharp, sharp.
yeah, sharp little guys. But it's not. I mean, we all understand he's a puppy. He doesn't get what he's doing. Like he doesn't.
Mm.
He's not trying to be mean. He just has lots of energy. So no, he's doing great. He's doing great. Family's loving him. He's still puppy, so we're still cleaning up messes all the time, trying to teach him. But it's also hard at that age, just to get him to get through his head. Hey, not inside. But he has been getting better, which is pretty cool.
Hmm.
So yeah, puppy front is good. It was my wife's birthday this week, so that was good too.
Okay. Happy birthday,
Yeah,
Sam.
yeah, pretty chill actually. Because we had just gotten the dog, and so we did have a little scare. He was allergic to a vaccine that we took him to get on my wife's birthday, and so he did start throwing up and started swelling up apparently. So we had to take him back to the vet and stay at the vet for a while, and it was a whole ordeal. And it's like annoying,
This
but
is
he's back to
not that was
normal.
not what you had anticipated.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe I'll make some jokes about it, bro hang, something like that, but maybe not on the main episode. But anyways, he's doing good. We're doing good. And yesterday I went out to a concert, which was super fun. Saw my favorite band again, Coheed and Cambria. And so I
Mm.
had mentioned it like a few episodes ago that this was on the docket. Coheed and Cambria and Mastodon and Periphery played, and they were all really good, and it was a cool venue, and it was a great time. So even though I soloed the
Mastodon.
show, it was a good time. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I need to show you pictures because at one point there was this huge like lumbering but like neon monster thing. It kind of reminded me of like I've never seen a Guar show, but it reminded me of a Guar show where
Mm.
like there's this huge like I don't know 20-foot tall like character kind of like coming out on the stage while they're
Was it like
playing, which is really
animatronic or was it
funny.
like a dude and like was it like a
I
puppeted
mean,
thing?
yeah, it looked like a guy was in a suit, but because it's like literally 20 feet tall, I'm like, I don't know how exactly they did it. Maybe it's a guy on stilts in there because he didn't really do much of anything. He just kind of like walked out there, like stared at people and then walked to the edge of the stage and stared at other people. But I mean, it was fun. It was fun. It
No,
was it was very surprising to see that. But
that's kind of wild.
yeah,
It's kind
yeah.
of
It was a good time. Great show. So I'm doing good. If I seem a little out of it, or if I sound I'll put it this way, if I sound more masculine this evening, it's because I
You have a
yelled a
head
lot
cold.
last night.
Oh,
No, I
okay.
actually I feel fine. Um Now that could be that, in crowds of people, but no, it's just that I yelled a lot
Mm.
because I was having fun with my favorite band. So it was a good time. I really enjoyed
It's
it.
you
So
did not rip a whole carton of ciggies. You were just
no,
screaming at the top of your
didn't do
lungs like a
that.
maniac.
Yeah, yeah. If you know Coheed and Cambria, the singer has quite a high pitched voice, and so you kind of
Hmm.
have to yell along to the songs if you're not going to sing an octave lower, or you just sound like trash. There's that too. What? Pick your poison, right? So
Yeah. Yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah.
that's how I've been, and that's how I'm doing, and I'm doing good. So that's good to know. But now that we've talked about how we've been, we should talk about some things that we've been into lately. And
Well,
actually,
no, I
yeah,
asked you how you've been. You have not
that's
asked me
true.
how I have been. How
How
dare
have you
you, sir?
been?
I'm
Oh, how
I've
have you
been
been?
I've been sad. I've been
Okay.
sad. Everybody
Oh,
else got their
you got the
switches like
sad.
last week, a few days ago,
Oh,
and I've had to
yeah.
wait. Mine shows up tomorrow. Um,
Nice. Nice.
but yeah, I'm sad. I'm insanely jealous of all the people who have gotten their Switch too.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
you know, day one. But mine is supposed to show up tomorrow.
It's
So
on.
I am
I see what you did there. That was good. It's a
wasn't
me, Switch 2.
tomorrow. It wasn't even on purpose. It's just like sometimes I say that. It's like one of those weird like just
Ticks. Yeah.
yeah, like it's like a weird tick that every once in a while I will say that way, and it's
Mhm.
anyways. It was not intentional, but yeah,
Sure it wasn't.
sure it wasn't. That's what I tell myself at least. It's my subconscious like rebelling against just the no, but no, yeah, yeah, dude, things have been like all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of been I hate rain. I really like,
Okay.
like Anakin
Rains on
Skywalker
your
hated
parade.
sand.
Yeah.
I hate
Gets
rain.
everywhere.
It
Mm.
gets everywhere and I get wet and sad. And like even when I don't have to be out in it a whole lot, like not all day, there's
Mhm.
just something like especially like after I got rained on for like 2 weeks where I'm just like it rained
Ugh.
yesterday. Um, at the time we're recording Monday night, but so
Mhm.
yesterday was Sunday on the way to church, and it just like I was not like in a great mood, but like my mood got like worse. I was like, rain.
Do not like this. Yeah.
I was like, I gotta walk in this just from my house to my car, and then from my car to the church front doors, and I don't like this. Um, but yeah, um, no, it just
I
then
think so.
yeah, just like tomorrow, I have an agenda. I'm gonna do some. I've got the day off.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna do some stuff around the house. So yeah, yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
And then get that sweet Switch 2.
yeah, yeah. Like it is kind of like one of those things where in the morning I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna prioritize. Like I have a couple of tasks to get into, and then
Mhm.
yeah. Anyways, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nice. Nice.
And
Okay,
hopefully
so
Switch
just
Two
quick
comes, and I
question.
can yeah,
Yeah. What is the first game you're gonna play on Switch 2?
yeah. I was actually talking to Parker a little bit about this today. I don't
Okay.
know. I
Okay.
can tell you
Okay.
that there's like gonna be a handful of things that get like after I do like the backup transfer stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
I think what I'm gonna do is like Breath of the Wild. I want to check out the update on that.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
so that's kind of up there. The link between or the Link's Awakening rather.
Mhm.
I I know that there's a performance upgrade for that, so like that's going to be on there. Um, it's a toss up. Like I might fire up Xenoblade Chronicles 3 first. That might be like my first like I'm going to play it.
Ooh.
But the thing is I do need to prioritize. We have a couple patron picks
Yeah,
and I do want to prioritize those. So
for sure.
it's probably going to be Astral Chain.
Okay. Okay.
It's
Cool.
at least that's going to be like the first thing I sit down and actually play. You know,
Right.
like there's going to be
Right.
a whole lot of like experimentation and like goofing
Yup.
off and just sort of like show me the whistles and bells, please.
Yeah,
Um,
for
so
sure. Yeah.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I think it's like I said, I think it's going to be Astro Chain.
Sweet.
Um, so yeah.
It's good.
But I am, yeah, I'm excited. I'm pretty stoked. So yeah.
Yeah. Excited for you, man. Excited for you to experience it. I never would have thought I would get, a new console before
Well,
you.
and what's so
It's a
funny
weird
is that we
world
were
we live
talking
in.
about this before we started recording, and it's like
Mhm.
like you were telling me, and I was like, and I looked at about like, and I was like, this is how I felt about my PS5,
Right.
where it's like
Yeah.
the jump up to sort of like, and again, it's a sort of like the like and I was actually telling somebody about this. I said when I got my PS5, like there were not a ton of like games day one that I was like, oh no, I need a PS5 to play this.
Right.
But I said, and the first thing I remember really like I said, I tried to play Control on a base PS4 and it
Mhm.
struggled. And I
Yeah.
said, and I threw it into my PS5 because I wanted to play that game and it was of delight. And I said, and that was the
Okay.
moment for me where I was like, this is worth it. This is like,
Yeah.
and it's like having my games play optimally is important to me, and it's like,
Mhm.
I don't want to
Yeah.
be a snob or whatever, but I think like to me, that just cannot be undersold. Like that cannot be understated. Like that cannot be kind of like undersold, it's where
Yeah.
it's like, this is going to be the best place to play my Switch games, and
Mhm.
Switch 2 games are just going to suffer or not suffer, but benefit from having just more juice. Like
Mhm.
yeah. So yeah.
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 It's true.
So
It's true. And we've got more to talk about in terms of games, but
mhm,
before we
we
get
do.
to games, we do have some other things that we'd like to share, not only with each other, but with you listeners. We have some experiences to share.
Hey back, let's start the show. Name Josh, let's go, let's go. Spilling thoughts on what they've seen, TV screens and silver dreams. Books that shook us, films that wow, stories now we pass around. Grab your headphones, pull up a chair. Let's dive into the XP shared. Oh, we're leveling up
That's right, the
tonight for
XP share. So we've rebranded, and that song is pretty much just a placeholder at this point. I obviously played it longer than kind of a stinger needs to be played. But experience share, we're
Mhm,
sharing our experiences of different forms of
mhm,
media, books, TV, films, all things like that.
mhm.
So let's take a look at what we have to share. Nate, you want to go first, or should I share?
I'll you know
Who's
what? I'll go
sharing?
first because I
Sweet.
can kind of move through mine pretty quickly.
Awesome.
Um, in an effort to sort of try and follow up, and I am not far into this book. I bought it a
Okay.
while ago with the intent to read through it, um, and sort of use it more. So now I'm actually, but in an attempt to sort of prioritize my fitness, because we talked about challenges last episode,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like I just need to get better at being a little more physically fit. I bought a book called Strong On,
Okay.
STRONG space ON by a guy named Pat Flynn. And
Hmm.
it's a primer for kettlebell workouts. So I bought that.
Ah,
I'm going to go through that and I'm going to develop some kettlebell routines based on that. I don't have
nice.
any thoughts. I'm just kind of starting the book, but and I will report back, in another episode just to say like, hey, this is what I thought of it. Um,
Sweet.
So in addition to that, I have one thing on here, but I meant to, but it's and I don't remember if I talked about this last week or not. But I'm going to talk about it now. On the Apple Music sort of application or whatever,
Hmm.
there is I'm going to pull it up and I'm going to show you, but there's
Okay.
um, a Bluey soundtrack
Okay. Hmm.
that is Bluey the album. I'm
Yeah.
going to, it
Okay.
is
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
delightful.
Yeah.
I love that show. Like, and
Hmm.
one of my like, yeah, I mean, like we kind of had like our Bluey phase where we talked about it all the time. But Byron's at an age where he actually likes it now, and so we're able to
Sweet.
revisit it. And it is just like, dude, it is like so wholesome and like
Yeah.
charming and just good fun. And it, you know, I have seen people who were like, dude, like the parenting there is unrealistic, and
Sure.
um, and it's like, sure, it is, but also like what's kind of fun is like I saw a comic talk about that, and he
Hmm.
was like, okay, he was like, yeah, he's like, but you're with the healers for 15 minutes. He's like, you have a good 15 minutes every day. And
Mm.
it's like, yeah, and it's a cartoon. It's not meant to be, you know. But I was like, I was
Right.
also like, I was like, instead of like taking it as a challenge, like, you know, sort of look to build in like a good 15 minutes, you know, just like
Yeah.
really like, and if you look for that in your own life, but it's like, I think Bluey's delightful and that soundtrack is really delightful. And even the opening song on that album is really like, it's the theme song, but then they
Hmm.
blow it out and there's like all
Yeah.
these different like sort of like it's so good. It's so much fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun. I put it on for Byron, and like when we were driving home the one time, and he was like fine with it, but like I
Okay.
really kind of was like, I jammed out on it, like
Yeah.
maybe jammed out, but it was like I really liked it. Like it's just kind of fun, and it was like a nice little like kind of passive listen. The last bit, and this is a YouTube, this is a content creator called Danny Go, um,
Okay.
and this is
Rings a
like
bell.
children's YouTube content,
Hmm.
but they do these like short videos that are kind of like they're songs, but they're songs to get like kids dancing and moving, and they'll
Yep.
do like almost sort of like video game-esque kind of references and stuff. And it's been really fun. We just put them some of them on for Byron the other night, and watching him sort of like get up and move around and dance around with those videos. And the songs are kind of like, the songs aren't complete garbage. Like it's not
Yeah.
like, you know, so it was, but it was like, and Megan and I were dancing around our living room with him
Hmm.
doing Danny Go stuff, you know.
Nice.
And so I think it's like one of those things like, hey, if you have a little one, Danny Go is kind of fun.
Hmm.
And it's not slop, you know.
Right. Right. Yeah. Like a lot of YouTube tends to be. Yeah. Awesome, dude. Yeah, I know my kids have watched some Danny Go videos. I think they're ones that are primarily, yeah, about getting up and being physical and exercising and stuff
And
like
like
that. So
all the like
nice.
I'm not, I haven't like watched extensive like the
Yeah.
all of the Danny Go content, but like it seems like most of it is geared at just like getting kids kind of like, you get the kids involved and there's sort of like a little
Hmm.
bit of a game or something in
Yeah.
it. Like there's one where Danny Go goes through the supermarket and it's like, we've got to collect 5 apples and 4 bananas, but don't pick up any rotten ones. And so like he's like, you know, like you see him like dancing through like going down this aisle and it's like, oh, there's
Hmm.
one, and he reaches out and grabs it. But it's like the kids kind of ape the movements and stuff like that, and it's
Yep.
fun and it's clever, and I'm like, it's like, I'm really glad that someone's making like interesting and engaging content that isn't like, you know what I'm saying, it's like it's
Yeah.
kid oriented, but it's also like get your kid like moving and stuff. And so that's like
Right.
something,
Right.
we had, Megan was telling me that friends of ours actually took their kids to go see Danny Go a while ago, and I'm like, oh,
Okay.
that's cool. If it's
Yeah.
something that Byron persists in like liking for a little while,
Hmm.
yeah, I would probably have fun going to a Danny Go concert. Like I think that
Yeah.
would be,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Nice. Dude, that's cool. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, actually good stuff for kids.
yeah.
Sweet. Well, I don't have anything like specifically child focused, but the closest thing actually this conversation reminded me of something that I watched with the wife. We got a trial of Disney Plus here recently. And so we sat down and watched a documentary that is the making of the making of a Goofy movie, if you remember that
Mm,
movie. I grew up
yeah.
on that movie, and so I love it. It has like a special place in my heart, even though I acknowledge like it's definitely a lower budget. You know, it's a shorter movie, but it goes into kind of the making of it and this whole like basically people my age and a little bit younger who have really latched on to the movie and really liked it as kids, even though it was not a hit when it was first released. And it talks about kind of why and how basically that this movie was envisioned as a John Hughes movie with Disney characters. And
Mm.
I hadn't ever really like thought about that because the core of the movie is this father son relationship.
It's the
Uh,
Max and Goofy father son relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean I just kind of took it for granted, you know. I just thought it was a fun movie. But it does have some really like actually some subtlety in there, which is funny because it's goofy. Like you wouldn't think that he would have subtlety. So it has some really good moments that I don't think I've ever fully appreciated. Now it's a documentary. It's trying to like, you know, like get you to it's a little hyperbolic, I'll put it that way. You know, it's not like the
Mm.
best piece of cinema ever because they show like YouTube clips of people that are just like praising it to high heaven. And it's like, no, I think it's a really good movie and I really like it, but it's not like the best. It's not, you know, a
We
part of the cinematic canon
I
necessarily.
watched I watched the Goof Troop. Like we
Yeah.
put it on sort of in the
Mhm.
background for Byron at one point in time, and I sat there and I watched most of it, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, yeah, I remember kind of liking this." And it's like
Mhm.
it's a really sweet kind of movie
Yeah.
about fathers and sons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So not just a goof is what it's called on Disney Plus. I would recommend it, especially if you've seen the movie. If you haven't, you might not get the context,
Mhm.
but we really liked it, even though I acknowledged, yeah, it's a bit hyperbolic, especially towards the end. It just pointed out some things about a movie that I really like that I hadn't ever really realized before. So that one's good. Another movie, and actually I watched this one quite a while ago, but I forgot to mention it. Is the movie Nobody, which is like, sorry, I did not give any warning here. It's a rated R movie, extremely violent, with Ben Odenkirk. That's basically it's along the lines of like a Taken or something like that.
Oh,
John
I
Wick,
wanna
you know.
watch that like, I think I have that on, like, my Amazon sort of, like, wish list kinda thing. Like, I've heard
Yeah.
really good things about that. Like, and Bob Odenkirk, well, man,
Well, and that's
just
the thing is like you don't expect him. I don't know. I've seen him in comedic roles, you know,
mhm,
and granted he has a range because of Better Call Saul, you know,
mhm.
like he's not just comedic, but there is that
But
undertone of comedy through it all.
I was gonna say, even with Better Call Saul, there's, like, comedic undertones. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And this
100%.
one is not, and I think he pulls it off really well.
I've heard really
Even
good
if it
things about it,
is,
period.
yeah, yeah. So it's a good
Mm,
time. Again, extremely violent, rated R. It's got language. And it's not, again, nothing like super special, but it's really well done. And so we had a good time watching it. It does get pretty gory at times. So warning. And then I saw another reason this came to mind is because I just saw within the last week or two that they announced a release date for the second film. So I didn't realize there was going to be a sequel. Because there
mm.
doesn't need to be necessarily. It's not like it super sets up another one. But here we
I don't
go.
know. I
We're
don't
bringing
know
it
how
in.
I feel about that, man. Like, and it's like it all depends. Like, if it does well, if it's good or whatever,
Mhm.
that's whatever. But I am kind of tired of like just like sequelitis. Like, not everything. Like,
Yeah,
just like I'm okay with. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I kind of rejoice in the fact that there are like 4 John Wick movies. Like,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I
I need to
didn't
watch the
need
fourth,
four
but yeah,
John Wick movies. Like,
yeah,
they're all pretty great. It's
yeah,
like, and I love watching them. But there's a lot of stuff where it's just like I and again, if it's good, it's good.
yeah,
At the same time, though, I am kind of like just like, dude, like sometimes it's okay to just do like one and done and just be like, no,
yeah.
we're like,
I mean, So it's not completely, what I mean is that it doesn't set up a second, it doesn't feel like you're missing anything, like it's
Mm,
not a complete story, but it definitely, like, it foreshadows that there is more to especially the main character. Okay,
mm.
so his life is markedly different at the end of the movie than it was at the beginning of the movie. So there's more stories you can tell. It's just that it doesn't feel like, oh, this is part one, like, oh, this is a setup. There's a huge reveal at the end, and oh, where's it gonna go, kind of a thing.
Well,
Um,
and I think too that the other thing is okay, and this is part of like is that it almost feels like sometimes if you don't write these things with having sort of a series or a trilogy or a franchise in mind,
mhm,
that it does sort of feel like the sequel always feels like almost like tacked on,
sure,
kind of like,
yeah,
and I don't know. It's like I don't know.
yeah,
Anyways, it's nothing. It's whatever. Like I'll probably, but yeah, nobody is like that's kind of been like on my list for a while. That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah. I'd recommend it. Yeah, especially if you like John Wick. Along those same lines, you'll enjoy it. So. That's nobody. The other thing that I wanted to recommend that I've been reading, I talked about my challenge is to read more, especially physical books. And so I picked up The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis from the library, and I'd listened to it before, but I hadn't ever, like, I don't think I own a physical copy. I don't think I've
Mm,
I've read it physically, and it's been great. And it's been a while since I listened to it. It's been great reading through it again. It's a short little book, but man, Lewis has quite some insight in just these little kind of vignettes that he sets up, these little scenes that you get. If you know, if you're not familiar with the story, it's basically a group of ghosts travel from this what feels more like purgatory, but and they end up calling it hell. They travel from hell to sort of the outskirts of heaven, at least. Um, and they have conversations with they see how it affects them, but they also have conversations with people who have gone to heaven, and you see, like, the difference in worldview between those who are still very self-obsessed, and those who are, like, fully given over to Christ. And so it's a really cool, it's some really cool conversations and really cool thoughts that get you to think about things. Now, I totally get that if you say, oh, if you think he's actually making an argument these types of things can be true, then I get how you could say, oh, this is like borderline heretical. But I think the more heretical elements of the book, if that makes sense, is set dressing so that he can set up these scenes where it makes you think about the different kinds
yeah.
of perspectives that these characters have. I don't think he's. So, I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he was like, "Yeah, sort of like Milton, in Paradise Lost. Like,
Mm,
he's not trying to say that this is actually what happened. He's trying to get you to think about, what would a Lucifer character actually, why would someone have rebelled against God, and how would they be thinking, not that this is actually who Lucifer is, kind of a thing. Anyways,
mm,
all that said, it's fascinating. There's one vignette I'll share really quickly that really stuck with me so far, and it's the main character talks with this guy who's a fellow ghost. Okay, they'd both come from hell, basically. And they're talking, and the way that this ghost talks, he was a bishop while he was alive, and he spiritualizes everything to where nothing in the scripture, like, he's basically too smart to say that any of it could have actually been true. Oh, but it's true in the truer sense of true, not in the sense of true that, that Jesus was an actual person. No, but the Christ is, this consciousness that you become a part of, something along those lines. And I'm just like, Lewis had the foresight. One, he had the foresight that this, like, kind of conversation is like the current progressive Christian conversation, and or like Jordan Peterson Christianity
mhm,
conversation that, like, goes on all the time today. But it also made me realize, like, it's not necessarily foresight on Lewis's part. It's that this has always been a part of, a
yeah.
part of deception. of what some people believe Christianity to be, that that they see through it as opposed to actually accepting it.
I think though too, like, and just something about Lewis, and I was, talking to somebody here in the last few days. And
Hmm.
one, I'm a much bigger fan of his fiction than I
Hmm.
am of his essays. I think his
Yeah.
essays are good, right?
Hmm.
Um, and actually, The Abolition of Man, which is a
Hmm.
sort of, I think is a brilliant little sort of like argument for just universal morality,
Hmm.
but an objective universal morality. Um, but yeah, it's just one of those things where I think he always does like a really just great job of like, I think he understood the human psyche in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
And like he does get like weird and quasi mystical in some of his
Hmm.
fiction, like Till We Have Faces is like one of my favorite books. But
Yeah.
there's some problematic like, and I know
Okay.
this word, but there's problematic stuff in that book.
Okay.
And so like some of the positions he kind of, doesn't really hold, but like
Hmm.
some of like what the book has to say, but it raises questions at the
Yeah.
very least, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I do like, I one of my favorite sort of things, and I think it's from Mere Christianity, but it's when he talks about like men without chests and like,
Hmm.
and he doesn't use this term, but he talks about like I think it's from the Screw Tape Letters actually, but like the rational mystics, where it's like I think accurately, I do think there's a little bit of like being able to sort of like say like, hey, this is where these ideologies lead if they go unchecked. And I think
Hmm.
like he did sort of like correctly forecast the fact, like, you look at Western culture now, and there is this kind of like this rational mysticism where there are a lot of people who are very spiritual, but they kind of retreat into like this sort of like science adjacent sort of talk, but they're very open to spirituality as
Hmm.
long as it's not Christian spirituality.
Yeah.
It's like they're very open to sort of like taking ayahuasca or whatever to
Hmm.
open their inner eye, and
Hmm.
and all of these other things. And I think it's like, even there, it's like there's sort of like in that there's a recognition of the truth that like somehow like these people are sort of like they're rubbing right up against it without actually but like that there is a supernatural or a spiritual reality that we exist within like physical reality is sort of like exists either in tandem or in sync, or and again, it's a metaphysical thing, like I'm not sure how like spirit realm, physical realm sort of overlap or whatever.
Sure.
Like I don't know. I have theories, but
Hmm.
I'm also not a physicist. I'm not even a metaphysicist. So I can't I can't qualify or quantify any of my theories. But yeah, it's this thing where they're very open to that until it actually intrudes on their reality in a
Right. Until
meaningful
it
way.
costs. Yeah. Until it
Until it costs
requires
them
something.
something. And
Yeah.
yeah, and so it's just like I've always like, and I've just like, I look at the culture today, and again, you see these people where it's like, I'm spiritual but I'm not religious, and but then
Hmm.
yeah, anyways, so I just,
Yeah.
Lewis is a favorite even if he gets like a
Yeah.
little like messy, and he does
Right.
get messy.
Right. And I can acknowledge that for sure. Like even love the Narnia books. They're fantastic. But even
Mhm.
there, even The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, even Aslan's sacrifice there is not a picture of substitutionary atonement. It's more of a
Nope,
picture of Christus
it's
Victor or a ransom theory
ransom theory.
of
Yep.
of Christ on the cross. And so, like, yes, there are problematic elements, and yeah, it's funny. I use that term too. But yeah, there are issues. I don't agree with him 100% on things, but I think he definitely paints great pictures. Yeah, has lots of wisdom. So,
Dude,
I'm enjoying it.
frankly, I think and I come back to this, but I think his the demonic depiction in Paralandra
Yeah.
um is
Oh
by
man, love
far
those.
like, I don't know. It's just like this sort of like this I just remember like, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but like when Ransom is talking about like he's facing the adversary, right?
Hmm.
And he recognizes that it is this like monstrous intellect, and it possesses power and knowledge far greater than him, but it's sort of been reduced down to just like a petty cruelty and a nastiness.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that is so, it's like sort of this like, almost like cosmically powerful, like petulant child
Right.
kind
Yes.
of
Yes.
like,
Yeah. Very immature.
and it's
Yeah. Just wants
like
to
just,
make life hard for you
yeah,
just
well, and
because.
it's like, yeah, that entire sequence where it just like, it's like, I'm not gonna let you sleep. I'm just gonna be annoying.
Yeah.
Like I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh. Anyways,
Yeah. Good stuff,
yeah,
man.
it's yeah, but yeah, Lewis is a gem.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I like him. And you know what else that I like? I think you can tell because of the podcast itself is I like some video games. And I played some video games over the past couple of weeks. Nate, did you play any video games?
I did not.
Yeah.
There weren't any sort of like crazy deviations, although I do have some
Okay.
updates to
Yeah.
share, some updates in my scoring.
Yeah.
So do you want me to kick it off, or do you want to sort of?
Oh, either way. I mean, I guess I can take it. Sure. Why not? So, I guess you let the cat out of the bag a little early here, but I did pick up a Switch too. And so I did exactly what you had mentioned in that you kind of just start playing with a bunch of different games. It did come with Mario Kart World, and so that one adds a +1 for a pickup onto my score. I did roll credits on Mario Kart World because me and my kids immediately jumped into Grand Prix, and my son, like, that's all he wanted to play. He didn't want to battle. He didn't want to do the knockout tour. He just wanted Grand Prix. And so within a few days, we played through all the Grand Prix. You only have to play through them. We just played through them on 50 cc's because they're kids, and so after playing through all the Grand Prix, you get a credit roll. So I do get a negative point. I get a positive for buying, positive for playing, and then a negative for rolling credits on it.
Mm-hmm.
There's still so much more game left in this game, so it's kind of a technicality that I get a negative point because I'll be playing it off and on for quite a while. For sure, but having a great time with that. But also played some other games just because, hey, it's fun to play it on Switch too. Played around with a little Tears of the Kingdom. That was fun. Snipper Clips is one that I've gone back to that I never finished. I intended to play through it with my wife, and we played through a number of the levels and just hadn't gone back to it in literally years. And so booted that up, played a level or two with my wife. My kids really liked watching, and so they wanted to play it also. So I've been doing some back and forth with Snipper Clips. So I might actually finish that one before the year is out. We'll see. I'm continuing in Long Gone Days, so we'll talk more about that as the episode on that gets closer. That's a patron pick, so we'll be able to dig into that a little bit more. So made a little bit of progress there. And then my main game right now, outside of when I'm playing with the family, is the DLC, the Future Redeemed DLC for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And this was primarily, I was going back and forth. Okay, am I gonna jump into Second Story R, Star Ocean, Second Story R, right? R, or is it? Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
Second
Anyways,
Story R. Yeah,
I was like,
it,
it's
the
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 second game.
remake
Yeah, second.
one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it was either that or Xenoblade 3. And simply because of the scope of Xenoblade 3, I wanted to see how it ran. I don't recall a ton of issues with the first Xenoblade 3 or with the main game. But if you go online, people will mention how it doesn't run well. I was like, oh, I guess I had rose tinted glasses for
Mm-hmm.
me. But I want to
Well,
see
I
it,
think
with my new hardware.
I think that's the thing is Monolith is like they're wizards. And so the
Yeah.
thing is that game ran
Yeah.
better than it probably should have.
Yeah. For
Um
sure. Just
uh,
like the
uh,
Zelda games.
yeah,
Excuse me.
exactly. They were actually like instrumental in optimizing those. So,
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
but it's at the same time, it's like one of those things where it just comes down to the fact that like, it's kind of like it's basic comp sci people. If you get more juice,
Mhm.
and more RAM, so a better CPU, a better GPU, and more RAM, it's just going to perform better. And so even
Right.
like baseline, it's like even if it's not like super crispy and it doesn't have the optimization, like because it doesn't like
Mhm.
that's the thing is like with the patches for the Zelda stuff, like that's them actually like kind of like going in and messing with the settings.
Yep.
Like those settings are pre-fixed in the game. So like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 doesn't have an optimization patch yet. It might get
Right.
one. Like I would be surprised if Monolith doesn't
Mm.
release one.
Mhm.
But they don't need to. But what it's going to do is it's just going to like smooth out any of the bumps. And so any of the time where like it would get a little chuggy or whatever, it's not
Yep.
going to have that problem. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
And that's why
Exactly.
I'm like, yeah, I'm like well, and it's like we even talked about it. I was like, well, with Switch 2 on the horizon, I think I'm just going to push that stuff down a little
Yep.
ways and I'm
Yep.
just going to play it on like it, dude, even like with Arceus. Like I remember you
Mhm.
talking about like Arceus had some like technical issues.
Mhm.
And here's the thing, I'm not going to experience those, and I'm okay
Right.
with that.
Right.
I'm okay
Yeah.
with that.
For sure.
Like
For
I'm
sure.
already sort of disturbed by the fact that I've got to play Arceus. Um, you know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so but yeah, no, it's yeah, and you were saying that it looks good, it plays
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun to be back in the world. I'm enjoying. It's really interesting to after playing the main game, some of the and after playing the first game and the second game, because this DLC ties them in more. And there are
Mhm.
characters from the first game and the second game. You might know them from Smash Brothers that show up that are much, much older that show up early in this DLC. And I'm like, dude, are you serious? And it's just kind of like just a very short, like, oh, this character is off doing oh, this character found another character. Like, what? So I'm really stoked to see where this is going. And I'm hooked on it. So I'm sure. Well, I need, like I said, need to finish Long Gone Days, but I'm digging the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed for sure. So in terms of my scoring, another game I had mentioned that there was another game that I wasn't sure that I scored out on the last episode. What that was Dishonored. Okay, I am officially abandoning the game, not
Mm.
because it's a bad game, but simply because I don't have the
The
intentional
bandwidth.
time. Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I don't foresee myself, now that I know kind of where the game goes, like really putting in the time to do that right now. And so I am abandoning it. But again, I don't mean that to say it's a bad game. So I do get the -1 because I put in the solid 60, played the first couple of levels. So that it, like, my score looks like it's at the same as it was last week, even though I bought and played Mario Kart World. It's simply because I had forgotten to score out Dishonored. So because Dishonored give me a -1, I get a -1 for rolling credits on Mario Kart. I get a +2 for purchasing and playing Mario Kart. It evens out. I'm still at -8. That's my score. Thanks for watching. How about you, Nate?
I am actually editing mine
Oh,
because
right.
it's like you reminded me of something that I've been meaning to do for a while,
Okay.
and I
Yeah.
just haven't done.
More
So
games to abandon.
yeah, pretty much. I am still kind of like dabbling with Clair Obscur. Like I need to just like put it aside and
Yeah.
then just say like when I'm ready to just come back, because I do want to get the platinum.
hmm
But I do need to just like take a break. It's just hard to, because I really like that game. I like that world. I'm just
Yeah.
like I like playing that game.
hmm
But I do need to put it aside. So I'm kind of just like I'm putting that aside, but I haven't it's kind of like, you know, how I never really stop playing Snap even when I want
Sure.
to, where I'm like I'm just like, oh, I still play it every once in a while and I still fire it up and then I hate myself. Um you know, I hate this game, I hate
As you
myself.
do,
I actually just fun little deviation. I got not super into it, but on Twitter, I did. I'm part of a Marvel Snap community thing, and there was somebody who was like saying something, and they thought they were being spicy, and I was like, "Well, here's why you're actually wrong." And I don't think those comments were received well, you know.
Okay.
But I basically sort of like proved the math on something. I said, "This is why your argument doesn't hold water," and
Sure.
yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
so yeah, Snap is just like this thing that it has its hooks into me. It's like a bad relationship. It's like a bad girlfriend. It's like, you know, that you need to just break it off, but you
Uh-huh.
just can't. Anyways, so, but Claire Obscure has just kind of been, it's like the much healthier version of that. But I
Nice.
too have sort of fired up a little bit of Long Gone Days since we last spoke. I played
Okay.
a little bit more,
Yeah.
not a ton.
Mhm.
It's one of those things where I just, if I'm being honest, I haven't played a ton, period.
Yeah.
Um, just over the last couple of weeks, week and a half, 2 weeks. So I did sink a little bit more time into Returnal, and I think that's a game that I am going to
Okay.
sort of probably do a bit of focusing on, just to sort of, that's been in my backlog for a while. And well, like we talked about it,
Mhm.
that and Doom Eternal, like those are two games, like I'm like, this
Sure.
year
Yeah.
we're gonna crap or get off the pot with these two games. Like, we're either gonna beat them or we're just gonna like be like, nope, we're done and we got to move
Yeah.
on. So, but it's like Returnal, and I was like kind of getting back into the loop. But that is, Mike and I were actually talking about, that is a game that like you kind of have to be in it. Like, you have to
Mhm.
like, and so yeah, so that's going to be kind of a game that's going to be, I don't know, my vibe game, but it's like, that's going to be a game that's like, just like, I'm going to really kind of sit in and sink some time and energy into for a while.
Yeah.
Just because I do want to beat it, and I really do like that game. But in addition to that, so I've been playing that. I also fired up Slay the Spire. Um,
Okay.
just because, like, here's the thing, I like deck builders.
Yeah.
Um, and I was like, I wanted to sort of just like mix it up a little bit. Like, I played some Balatro too over the last, like, so I've been playing
Okay.
some Balatro, some Slay the Spire, some Snap, and I'm just like, oh, just kind of like mixing it up. I just like deck
Mhm.
builders. Um, so yeah. So some Slay the Spire, some and looking here, but yeah, so the one thing, and I've been meaning to do this for a while, and I've kind of been waffling on it. I've been thinking about doing it for a while, but I think I'm just going to pull the trigger on it. And I have potentially another one that I think I'm going to drop the axe on. I fired up Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, the remaster, like a while ago. I got like 4 or 5 hours into that game, and I just kind of stalled out because, frankly, I think it's boring. Like,
Okay. Okay.
it's
Yeah.
really competent, but I don't give two rat farts about that story. Like, and
Mhm.
it's like, I'm just like not, I'm just not there. Like,
Sure.
and so I think it's kind of one of those things. I've looked at it a few times and I've been like, I need to just like circle back around this. But I think the reality is, like, I'm just not going to. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
not going to, like, I'm not going to prioritize it because I didn't really like it. Like, I didn't hate it,
Mhm.
but I didn't like it enough to stick with it. And I think that that's just like, I like shooters, and I recognize that Call of Duty is sort of like the premier. And I think what I am going to do is, like, I've heard that uh, the Black Ops games are really good. Like, they're like, if you want to play the best Call of Duty, it's the Black Ops stuff.
Okay.
I have some of the Black Ops games, so I'm gonna like maybe dip into one of those, at some point in time. But all that being said, like, I'm just kind of like, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, this is not a reflection on the game in any,
Mhm.
like, this is not me saying, "No, this game is trash." I'm saying, like, I just don't like it.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't do anything for me. Like, and so I'm going to abandon it for a -1. Um
Okay.
so normally that would have um that would have been that would have adjusted my score significantly, but I did have some birthday money, and there was a
Okay.
sale going on, and there's a couple games I've been sort of eyeballing for a while when it comes to just like PlayStation or just in general. So Alan Wake was the deluxe edition was fairly deeply discounted, and so
Okay.
I pulled the trigger on that. I think I got the deluxe version for $30, which is
Okay.
the game and then all of the DLC. Like I think there's 3 DLCs. So I got that, and then Marvel's Midnight Suns, which is something.
Hmm.
And again, it's a deck builder. It's like this deck builder strategy game,
Oh, gotcha.
and I've heard
Gotcha.
that it's really good. And so there's this part of me where I'm like, okay, like, it's by the same guys. Oh, is it the XCOM guys? I think it might be the XCOM guys. Anyways, doesn't matter. But I'm gonna check out Marvel Suns. But I did use birthday money, so I'll be able
Okay.
to play those kind of whenever with no penalty. But I do have to take a penalty for acquisition. So picked up 2 games, abandoned one. For okay, and I'm gonna have to update that in the Discord too.
Okay.
But puts my total beatdown score at a -4. I was at -5, I believe. Yeah, I would have been at -5. But then picking up 2 games, that gives me a +2. Abandoning COD Modern Warfare 2 Remaster gives me a -1. Puts me at -4. And,
Gotcha.
sort of just like touching on this real quick, guys, like, obviously, if this is your first time watching or listening, you're kind of like, what are they talking about? What are these numbers? Well, it's a meta that we run all year long called the Backlog Beatdown. And you're listening to the Backlog Breakdown, and there's a lot of that's a lot of brand confusion, and we get it. But the Beatdown is a meta game that we run all year long, where the goal is to encourage you to play the games that you already own, and sort of throttle back on just acquisition. Right. So when you buy games, you add points. And when you play games that you already own, you take away points. The goal is to sort of like, so if you think of your backlog as having like a numerical value, right? It's like you're sort of looking to chip away at that.
Yep.
So you want to get a either low score or a negative score. All right. That being said, if you're interested in, and that's like the TLDR version of that. If you're
Sure.
interested in the actual full rules and everything else, and we've got the locked and loaded lists and all that variation this year and all that. If you're interested in the rules, you can reach out to us, email us, or just check it out. Like check out our Discord server and check out the 2025 Backlog Beatdown channel. It's pinned there. That being said, something else that you might want to check out. It's us. We have a Patreon, like a lot of other podcasts out there, and we want you to kind of like, in a way, it's a glorified tip jar, right? It's also a way
Sure.
for you to partner with us for as little as $1 a month. You can support this as we sort of try to grow this, and sort of as we continue to sort of flesh out what the Backlog Breakdown is. Like, we have sort of evolved over the years, and we're trying to be just again, we want to be a resource for our brothers and sisters in faith, to just help them think through video games and wrestling with those. In addition to sort of being able to partner with us and support this endeavor, our patrons get early and uncut access to each and every episode. There's an exclusive patron podcast called the Bro Hang, aka A Thought for Your Thoughts, aka Between Two Bros, aka whatever nonsense we decide to call it then. It tends to be a lot more conversational, stream of thought, kind of stream of consciousness. It's sometimes we talk about video games, sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's the equivalent of us just making a bunch of fart jokes. Sometimes it's us tackling stuff that's really kind of heavy. It's a mixed bag. It's kind of like Mexican candy. It's complicated.
And a little spicy.
Little spicy, and kind of like it's a complicated flavor profile here, folks. And so if that sounds appealing to you, again, but we're going to have a link in our Linktree where you can sort of check that out, and we'd love to have you join that community. The patrons also have the opportunity, and when you've heard us talk about patron picks and stuff, they have the opportunity to nominate a game or a topic for us to do an episode on, and join us on that episode. We recently did the Banner Saga. Dishonored was a patron pick. The Talos Principle at the beginning of the year. We're going to be talking. Long Gone Days is going to be a patron pick. We're going to be doing Mist. We've got a few others sort of in the pipe to sort of try and get to this year. And so we like those guys. We love sort of like their feedback, and they get a little bit more access to us because they pay for it. So, But if any of that sounds appealing to you, we'd love to have you join. So that being said, lastly, but certainly not leastly, we are proud members of the Play Well Network, and it's a little bit of a network where, again, this idea of playing well, playing wisely. Like, we have some friends who sort of tackle that and wrestle with that topic in their own ways. Wesley Ray, the Henshin Dad, with the Henshin Dad himself, correction, has the Retronym Project, or the Retronym Podcast, which is a nostalgia kind of retrospective podcast. Paul the Techno Funk Boy Lytle has the Thorns of War, which is an actual play podcast set in the Dragonlance realm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. It's an actual play podcast, and it's kind of cool. Then lastly, but certainly not leastly, out of all of that is our buddy Nick Porch, the Wanda from Down Under. Has Nothing New Under the Porch. We love those guys. We love what they're doing, and we think you should check out their content. So here's a word from one of them.
This is Phil from Phil's Gaming Emporium. We have all your retro needs and are a proud sponsor of the Play Well Network. In honor of you getting pwned, we are offering a cheap backlog reduction sale. Just request our services with the promo code BACKLOG half off for 50% off our backlog services. After that, we simply send you a package for you to put your backlog in, and once the mail carrier comes, your backlog is gone. It's like magic. You have a clean slate and room for more games that you can order from our website, Phil's Gaming Emporium.
And we're back. So tonight, folks, what we're going to be talking about is we have a top 100 list. It's the 100 games that Josh and I sort of think are the games that you like. If you're only going to play 100 games, these are the 100 games that we think you ought to play. That's basically that's the criteria. And this is not the finalized version, but we like to do like a mid-year refresh where we kind of look at the list. We think about what we've played so far this year, what should be added, what might need to be taken away, etc., and so on and so forth. Blah 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 blah. This tends to be kind of more of a rough drafty kind of thing where we're sort of just throwing some things out early on for our for each other's consideration. So this it will affect the final draft of this, the finalized 2025 list. But and technically it's the list going into 2026. But that being said, so let's just kind of jump into it. So Josh, we have our top 100 list.
Right.
We've had it for a while now, and it's we do this with consistency, but I just feel like, and again, so why don't we just take a minute to talk about, let's actually take a minute to look at what we've played so far this year.
Yeah.
I'll kind of rip off the high notes. I've played a substantial amount of stuff this year. Not like crazy, but I'm sort of using GG here, and of course, anybody who's been paying attention, GG or who knows the spiel, GG is the official app of the Backlog Beatdown. If you want to see and this is why. So what I've played so far this year, as far as played and beaten so far this year, as far as I can tell here, is Remnant 2, the DLCs for Remnant 2, and then the Talos Principle, Evil West, Dishonored, the Banner Saga, the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, and Expedition 33. So those are what I've played so far. Out of that list, okay, and so Dishonored and Banner Saga were both, Dishonored because it was the definitive edition that just counted as a regular playthrough, but then Banner Saga was a bit of a replay for me, and then but Dishonored, Banner Saga, and Expedition 33 are really the standouts for me. Those are the three that I think, we need, as far as that I'm going to be bringing to the table for us to talk about putting them on the list somewhere in some way, shape, or form. So, how about you? Where are you at so far with this with this year's rendition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I actually have a good amount of games that I've played through as well as I take a look at my GG list. Of course, use that app or the website as well as what I'm looking at here. And most of them are shorter games. Only one is substantial, but it's kind of a carryover from last year. But so far, what I have played and either beaten or we'll say abandoned as well, because Dishonored is there, but which is dishonorable abandonment on my part. Anyways, Titanfall 2 is how I finished off, or excuse me, how I started off the year. Ninja Gaiden, the NES game, the Talos Principle, Shin Megami Tensei Devil Survivor 2 Record Breaker. That's the big boy that I played through. Willow on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Pokemon Legends Arceus, The Banner Saga, Halo 3, Contra 3, The Alien Wars, Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty HD, and Kirby's Dream Course. Which actually, you know what? I need to add to this list Super Mario Kart World. My goodness. It's not super, but it is a world. That would be added to technically beat down because of the way this list works. So those are the games that I've played through, and counted towards my beat down so far this year. Now, the three that I have coming to the table, as caveated as it might be, I thought about Talos Principle a little bit because I think there's something interesting there, but it didn't rise to that level for me, although I did like it quite a bit. So that's more of like honorable mention territory, if even that. But the three that I wanted to talk about in this first, well, actually, you brought it up earlier, the Banner Saga. Okay, it's not currently on our list. Does it deserve a spot? And I'm of two minds. We can have a conversation about it. Is it too niche? Is it too kind of small of a game in the sense of kind of, I guess, scope or something along those lines? Is it really something you'd recommend to everyone? I don't know. We'll see. We can have more of a conversation. So I'm on the fence about that one, but that is one that I wanted to bring to the table. The other one that I'll just say I'll bring it to the table and see what you think about it, is because we don't currently, at least as I was looking at the list, we don't currently have something along the same lines as this game, is that I think Contra 3, The Alien Wars, is a really good kind of run and gun type game, along the same lines as, well, yeah, I mean, I guess Ninja Gaiden is there. We have some beat 'em ups on our list, but we don't really have any kind of run and guns like this game. And I do think that this is kind of a best in class of how big and bombastic it is. And so I could see slotting it in, probably towards the tail end, because it is very much like an arcade action run and gun. But that is one that I wanted to present. Yeah, does it deserve? We should at least have a conversation of, does it deserve a spot? The other one that I'd like to throw in here is another, because of that same reason of, I think there's a hole within our top 100 list. We don't currently have any Pokemon games on our top 100 list. And for me, Pokemon Legends Arceus goes to the top of the pack. It is not the traditional Pokemon game. It is kind of this hybrid exploration version of Pokemon that I really enjoyed, and I think it's an evolution of the mainline Pokemon titles, so much so that it's probably my favorite Pokemon game, discounting nostalgia from the original games. So I think if we were to add a Pokemon game to the list, I think Arceus would be the one that I would advocate to add to the list. So those are the three, for all of my long-winded explanations, is Banner Saga, Contra 3, and Pokemon Legends Arceus.
So between the two of us, we have 5 games. Banner Saga,
Yep.
we both agree needs to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm bringing Dishonored to the table and Claire
Mhm.
Obscure. You're bringing Contra 3 and come on, Nate. He just said
Pokemon
it.
Legends.
Pokemon Legends Arceus. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
cool. So we have 5 games to sort of like wrestle with. I'm going to offer, I think, what's probably going to be the least controversial and easiest.
Okay.
Is I just think Dishonored needs to replace Dishonored 2.
Okay.
Um,
That was my thought as well. As I looked over the list and I was just looking with a more critical eye, I was thinking, and I wanted to have this conversation of, I understand that a lot of people say that Dishonored 2 is better, but if I haven't played it, and I don't think, have you played a little bit of Dishonored 2? Is that right? You just
yeah,
haven't finished
yeah,
it?
a little bit.
Okay. So depending on kind of what you said, I thought that would be a good idea as well. So I'm glad that you brought it up because, yeah, I think that is an easy switch at number 45, which, by the way, there is a link to our top 100 games of all time official 2025 edition in the description if you're watching on YouTube, or the notes if you're doing the podcast. So you can take a look at that list. But Dishonored 2 is currently the number 45 for us. So I think it would be an easy switch from Dishonored 2 to Dishonored.
Yeah,
Dishonored 2 to Dishonored. Yeah.
yeah. Like, I just so yeah, I just kind of swapped that over. Like I said,
So
I just think it's kind of it's easy, it's low effort.
yeah.
And until Isaac and I, and if you want to jump back in on that one to maybe check it out, but until
Mhm.
Isaac and I sort of double back and play through Dishonored 2 and sort of are able to like chew on that one, I think
Mhm.
it's like it's just fair to say, like, I've played some of Dishonored 2, and I think what's there, just based off of like what I remember, it is probably better, but I haven't played through it in its entirety, and I do think Dishonored is just a really great package.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's I like I said, I don't think that one I think was probably the easiest. So that's
Sure.
that's like my opening salvo here, and I think just
Okay.
like leaving it at 45 is fine for now, and we might need to move it at some point. But
Mhm.
you know, anyways,
So since you made the kind of an easy one there as well, I'm gonna throw a little bit of a get out of jail free card as well with one of my picks. Is with Because we all know. I mean, let's face it, guys. If you've been listening to this podcast for any amount of time, you'll know that Nate, even if he didn't show it when I mentioned it, there inside in his soul there was a little bit of a wince as I brought up Pokemon, and so I don't.
yeah, I resisted the urge, but I was like, you want to say there's no Pokemon on the list, and I wanted to say because Pokemon is trash. Um, but
So
I didn't say it,
you did
but I
very
did
well,
just now.
sir.
Um,
My kind of concession or recommendation is that because this game is a patron pick, we will be discussing it later on in the year. And so I am perfectly fine with setting it in the kind of honorable mention bucket for now, until we actually have that conversation, until we actually give some more of our thoughts and experiences with the game and explain why we do or do not like the game and address it then. So, for the sake of this conversation of looking at the games that we played this year and what deserves to be on the list, I I I would lean towards putting it on there. But I also totally get, hey, let's wait a little bit because we're gonna be
mhm.
talking about this game later down the line. So I'm cool with kind of setting that aside. And again, to me, it would be that honorable mention, but simply because we will be discussing it, but setting that aside for now.
Okay, yeah. Let's go ahead and I will add that. Um,
To honorable
I am
mention.
such a terrible typist to begin with. I haven't been playing nearly enough of Warhammer words, typing of vengeance or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, well, I think so. So we're sort of on this. I think now we're going to kind of get into the meat of
Hmm.
things at this point in time. So what do we want to tackle first? How about we just tackle the one that we both sort of brought to the table? Let's
Okay.
talk about the Banner Saga.
Banner Saga. Yep. Yep.
Um, this to me, if I'm being honest, like I think it belongs on this list. I also kind of want to withhold judgment until I've played the entire trilogy because I do think that that's like a
Ooh.
package. I think where it's going to land is that when you talk about the trilogy as a whole,
Hmm.
that's probably going to be a lot easier to place, versus yeah. anyways, that's just kind of like my thoughts. Like I do
Yeah.
have a potential place for it and a potential replacement. Um,
Okay.
but my just sort of like my opening offer is like I'm kind of like I said, I think with Banner Saga, I do think the Banner Saga game by itself is a little sort of like it feels a little incomplete. Like
Hmm.
it does tell a story. It has like a thing that it just like boop, here it goes. Like, it has a beginning and an end.
Hmm.
But that end is also kind of charged,
Yeah.
especially in knowing that 2 and 3 are out there and that there is this sort of continued sort of this continuation of the saga, literally. So I'm just
Right.
kind of like, it's one of those things where, to me, there's a part of me that has always looked at those games as just sort of being like almost like episodic content, but it's just like
Yeah.
one game. It's like, and so I'm just saying, like, I think you just say the Banner Saga trilogy is like
Hmm.
one thing. And I think that when we get to that, and like we could prioritize that, because like I think honestly we've even talked about it, like next year, none of these games are super long. So like maybe sometime next year we could slot them in to sort of like just like and I think we both had a good time, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So we were both, the game is really interesting, but I think like I said, I have a potential slot for it.
Hmm.
But I'm pretty okay with just saying like, hey, let's throw it on the honorable mentions for now,
Hmm.
pending an examination of the full trilogy.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because what I've been wrestling with is how much of my enjoyment or my love of the game is simply because it hit a lot of things that I just really like. I really like the art style, and I think it melds well with the overall aesthetic of the game in the kind of Norse feel of the game and how that relates to trying to survive and things like that, which I get does not hit everyone the same way. But like for me, and we've talked about this on the episode that we did, is like as soon as I started playing the game, I'm like, oh yeah, this is up my alley. And so
Mm-hmm.
when we put it on this list that these are 100 games that we think that you should play, is like how much of my enjoyment of this game is actually something that I would recommend to anyone, to get into the medium of video, to understand the medium of video games, and how much of it is like, oh no, I just really like it, just clicked for me in particular. And also, um does that mean, like, is this an essential game, you know what I mean?
Mm.
I'm not sure that I would answer. However, I think, yeah, I do think that, like you said, that perspective of all three games is going to be really helpful because, I don't want to give any spoilers, but there is a major decision that happens towards the end of this game that does affect the way that the rest of the game plays out. So your choices in this game actually make a difference,
Mm-hmm.
and they make a difference story wise and even within the battle mechanics themselves. And so while it is impactful, it is at the end of this game, it also does lead to even more down the road. And so, yeah, I'd like to see that impact because I think that is something special that games don't always get right. But I was impacted as the credits were rolling for this first game. So, um, yeah, I agree. Perhaps we should see once it all shakes out, how it goes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, we'll throw that on the honorable mentions for
yeah,
now.
for those discussions.
All right. So now we're kind of I think now we're starting to kind of get into the nitty-gritty.
Hmm.
And I think out of the games that we've like, I'm not gonna lie, I think I want to save Clear Obscure for the end.
Okay. Okay.
Like,
Yeah,
um,
that's fair. Yeah, no, it's much more of a substantial game, than Contra 3. Contra
so let's talk
3,
about Contra 3 then. Like,
yeah. So it is, and it was more of along, like, is this game going to make my personal top 100? Maybe not. I'm not even saying like this is I'm not saying it's one of my favorite games of all time. I simply, when I took a look at our list, obviously it's RPG heavy because we both like RPGs, right? But
Mhm.
I was looking at genres as well, and what our list actually puts forth in terms of different genres. And so through that lens, these kind of run and gun, because I do have I say that, I guess, depending on your opinion of these games, but we do have Mega Man 2, and that's sort of a run and gun. It's much more deliberate than a lot. I say that. I mean, you have to be deliberate in run and guns because otherwise you're going to die very quickly. But it is much more of an arcadey experience. There's nothing about Contra 3 that is I was going to say substantial. It is an 80s action flick ramped up to 11 and put on rocket boosters and you just button mash your way through the game and hope that you don't die, and you start over and you learn the patterns and all that. So anyways, it's not that it's a super impactful game. It's not a game that's going to change you if you play it. No, it is just a good arcadey time. It's just a blast. So something along the lines of, even now that I say it, of Broforce, you think of a game like that.
Mm.
It's ridiculous, but it's a really good time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of what this game is, and we don't necessarily have anything like that on our list. We've got
Mhm.
some beat 'em ups, obviously. River City Ransom's there. We've got Castle Crashers. We have another game somewhat that seems real. That seems like it has the same heart of, very simple but also difficult, but more complex and deep as you look into its mechanics in Vampire Survivors, although that's a very different
Mm.
type of game. So we have some things that are adjacent to this game, but that was kind of what I was thinking of. So I get the pushback of, does it actually deserve then to be in the top 100?
Well, I just okay, like, listen, I think that's fine.
Hmm.
Um, you're right. The list does not include anything really like that. Like, we don't
Hmm.
have any sort of like run and guns. But like, let's be honest, there aren't tons of run and guns. Like Contra is probably the highest profile run and gun that I can think of
Yeah.
outside of like Mega Man X,
Hmm.
which you know,
Oh yeah,
actually
that's
that's
way
something
up on the list.
I did play Mega Man X. Um,
Ah.
I forgot about that. Holy smokes! Like, but that's already on the list. Um,
Yes. Yes, quite
so,
high.
um, uh, I okay, and maybe this is it's not anything like this at all.
Mhm.
It's not like this sort of like one for one sort of like swap out. But I'm looking at slot number 97, Guitar Hero 3.
'Kay.
I like rhythm games. I really like the Guitar
Mhm.
Hero and the was the Rock Band. I like both of those, right? And I
Mhm.
think those are really fun games. But let's just sort of like full disclosure, those games are kind of hard to play now. Like they're not
Sure.
easily accessible.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of like these are the 100 games that we think you should play. I think accessibility needs to be a part of the conversation.
Okay.
Um, so I guess I'm kind of throwing it out there and I'm saying, we do have another rhythm game on the list that is more accessible, and that's the Taiku
Yeah.
no Tatsujin Rhythm Festival.
Right.
Um, and I just kind of I think, and even what you're saying about it, it's not like a game that's going to blow your mind, but it's a good game. It's a game that you think people should play. I think like slot number 97 just makes sense to me. That's kind of where I would say like I think that you could slot that in there and we wouldn't have to sort of get into this weird kind of like digging through the weeds, kind of like, oh, well, we need to pull Castle Crashers, or we need, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
that's just my sort of like off the cuff thoughts
Yeah.
on this.
Yeah, I was looking here just to see because you're talking about availability and something like Guitar Hero 3, and I didn't see Contra 3 readily available, like on NSO or something like that. But I do see it's actually it is in the Contra Anniversary Collection, so that is a way, and that's on pretty much everything. So that is a way they could play. But it scared me for a second there because I'm like, okay, if your pushback is availability for this other game, then Contra
Well, I
3 is
mean,
not
and
super
it's
available. But
something that we've even talked about, and that will be coming up eventually, is like Bravely Default. Like,
mhm,
one of the reasons it's at 99 right now, but one of the reasons it's down there that low is because it was just like it was stranded on the 3DS. But with the Switch 2, we got the Bravely Default remaster, and
mhm,
we're going to be having a conversation about that. It's also down there because like the again, the mid to late game in that is like question, like they make some questionable choices as far as like what they ask you to do. Um, hmm. But another game that, and you and I were talking sort of off mic about this, but another game is like Valkyrie Profile Lenneth. Like I've
mhm.
often said like this is probably one of my favorite RPGs of all time,
Yeah,
and I can't put it on this list because it's not really accessible. And we were talking about it, I was like, well, actually, it is kind of accessible now. You have to have a PlayStation, a
mhm,
PS4 or PS5, but like you can buy Valkyrie Profile Lenneth. And I'm
mhm.
like, okay, so now that does change the conversation. So at some point, and I'm just sort of throwing that out into the ether, at some point in
Sure.
time, and saying like, hey, we probably need to figure that one out. But
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and again, as I'm looking at other kind of famous run and gun series, you've got Metal Slug, Gunstar Heroes is a big one back on Genesis, and they've made some sequels to that one. And Cuphead is another one that I had not thought of as well. Um, so it is. I'm kind of two minds of this, even of suggesting this because now is this the best representation? I don't know, but it's the best that I've played. Does that make sense?
so it you
Um,
think you think Contra 3 is better than the Metal Slug games? Because I know that you and I
oh, that's a great
both
question. Yeah.
really like those. Like you
Yeah.
got way more into Metal Slug than I did, but we
Yeah.
both sort of like really enjoyed playing through a good bit of those.
Yeah. They have the same spirit. But for my personal taste, yeah, I would go with Metal Slug
Because Contra
because
3 leans more into like the like almost Rambo or
yes,
like
100%
Terminator,
Predator,
Predator
Terminator. Yeah.
esque kind of like, yeah, like almost like brutal 80s action flick. Whereas like Metal Slug, I think, is a little, well, it's funnier. Like it's
Yeah.
a little it's a lot more charming.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
so
Cartoony aliens coming out. I mean, obviously the Alien Wars. Yeah. So, anyways,
so
that's
this, I guess this sort of begs a question for me is like Contra 3
mhm.
versus do we want to try and get a Metal Slug game on the list?
Right. Yeah, and in my recollection, I'll have to go back to kind of the notes that I took when I played through the series. I mean, unless you want to say, Metal Slug Collection on Wii, which is what I played, and I don't even remember what it's called.
We
I
could just
assume
say
that's what
Metal
it's called.
Slug Collection pending.
Really? Okay. Well, if you're cool with that, then yes. I remember liking Metal Slug X quite a bit, but yeah, if we want to slot that in, I'd be down. I'd be down. And yeah, 97. I think that's great at the bottom of the list because again, it's not like Metal Slug is a series that hey, if it's there, I will always go for it. Like it's a good time no matter what, but it's not something that I'm like, "Oh man, would I recommend someone at least play a Metal Slug game once just
Yeah,
to see if you like it?" Yeah,
100%.
definitely. Yeah. So, okay, I think it takes it.
Okay.
There we go, man.
Okay. Well, I got that in there then. I guess that so
That
we've
leaves one
gone.
more.
It's it. This is the one. All right. And I really do want to save the bulk of my thoughts on this game for an episode proper,
Okay.
but um and it's like I do sort of feel like it's a little weird because it's like I'm still sort of wrestling with like, is this recency bias or
Sure.
not?
Yep.
Like, and as I do get a little bit further out, I don't even know if I'm cooling on the game, but I am shifting. Okay. And we're talking
Okay.
about Clair Obscure Expedition 33.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first played it, it was like, this is an easy, like when I first beat it, I was like, easy 10, easy 10. There's a couple like things that I feel like, fairly minor and inconsequential. And I still kind of feel that way. Right. I'm also like, this is a very strong 9. It's like, it's
Okay.
not quite 10 territory anymore, just by itself, based on some performance stuff, mechanics, etc.
Okay.
There's like the one sort of like really, I really like the story, but I feel like the story has sort of a like, you and I both love Nier, right? But we're also
Right.
like, Nier's story kind of like, it's good, but at the end it kind of just sucks. I don't know how else to say it. Like, it just kind of like, the way it hits, you're just kind of like, it's like, and I think that, and I'm trying to talk about this in as spoiler-free a context as possible,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I think this story is really great, but like when you get to the ending, there are some narrative choices that they make that sort of undercut the weight of everything. Um, Frankly, there's some like, and I think it sort of does the same thing, and it's not surprising because it's like the story is being told from all accounts, from what I understand, by non-believers, and so they
Mm-hmm.
sort of retreat in this sort of like optimistic hopelessness, where it's kind of like, it
Hmm.
does almost like with Nier, the ending was like, none of this really matters, but we're gonna go out kind of swinging, and like we're gonna just hope for something better, like, yay, kind of like kind of moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like in a way, Expedition 33 kind of does some of that as well, just because,
Okay.
like, and again, it's like it sets up this giant moral dilemma thing. Anyways, I'm not trying to get, again, I'm trying to avoid spoilery talk.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just trying to give like, and I say that, and I still want people to understand, I still love this game. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think there's a, and I guess I'm going to talk about the reasons why I love this game. One, I
Okay.
do love turn-based JRPGs and
Mm-hmm.
the JRPG style of game, but I do get really fatigued with them. Because it's like, we played Persona 3 Reloaded not too long ago. I have Metaphor Refantasio sort of on my list to get to at some point in time. We've talked about, I'm probably going to boot up Xenoblade Chronicles 3. But like,
Heyo.
when you look at these games, like the just the price tag as far as time goes, they're massive.
Yeah.
You know, and that's always like a hard pill for me, especially as I get
For
older.
sure.
So
Yeah.
something that I love about Clair Obscure Expedition 33 is that if you just sort of golden path it and don't get like too into the weeds, you can be done with this game in 25 to 30 hours.
Mm.
Like,
Okay.
you can beat the story in 25 to 30 hours.
Yeah.
Um, but there's a ton in there. So I love the fact that it's a game that's like, frankly, respects my time. Does that create some like pacing issues narratively? A little bit, but not, it's not anything that's like a major, like, oh my gosh, like this is just like, I think you have to be kind of like, there's a couple things I can think of that like, once they were brought to my attention, I was like, oh yeah, that is a little weird, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also doesn't fall completely outside the trope of just like typical JRPG pacing. in general,
Mhm.
Um, so there's that. I think the fact that it is just sort of, we were talking about the Switch 2 and how people are describing it as an evolution, not a revolution. And I really think that Clear Obscure Expedition 33 represents an evolution of the genre.
Okay.
Now, that being said, I don't want every game to be Clair Obscure Expedition 33. And frankly,
Sure.
some of what uh, Expedition 33 does, I think I almost would have liked to have seen them gone a little bit further. Like, I've seen clips that reference a game Shadow Hearts, which is like
Okay.
surprisingly in a lot of the dialogues I've been listening to, not a ton of people are drawing this point of comparison. And
Mhm.
I actually do. And I think they just didn't lean as far as they should have into it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm just like, oh, it's like, I see kind of like, I kind of see what you guys were getting at. And I wish you would have just really just leaned into that. Shadow Hearts
Okay.
had a really cool interactive timing based sort of like mini game on top of the turn-based combat.
Right.
Um, and that was like for attacks and special attacks and stuff like that. It was really cool. Like, and I kind of wish Expedition 33 would have done something with that, like leaned
Mhm.
into that a little bit more. Um, I just love the fact that this is sort of a turn-based game that is not press X to win. Like, and
Yeah.
just something to talk about, like, and is that the like the dodge and parry system is a requisite. Like, if you do not dodge, if you do not parry, you will die.
Mhm.
And I kind of love that. Like, the game sort of demands that you be a little more invested, that you just
Yeah.
don't sort of like, pick from a menu. It's not a flowchart spreadsheet kind of game. It's and again, that feels like a meaningful sort of evolution in the formula. And again, I don't need every game to be this way. Like, I don't
Mhm.
want this in the next Dragon Quest game. You know what
Okay.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it is cool to have it as an option. Like,
Mhm.
I think it's really actually, and it's pretty special. Um, I think the art design is really just, it's drop dead gorgeous. Like that
Okay.
weird sort of like um, abstract, absurdist kind of I'm trying to think of like, but it's like there's like sort of this again absurdism, abstract kind of vibe, but then it meets this sort of like this very almost expressionistic kind of like palette, and
Okay.
it's just gorgeous. It's just it's like it is a beautiful game. And maybe it doesn't have the same amount of polish that something like a Final Fantasy 16 does. Like, maybe
Sure.
it's not just the character models and the rigging isn't like immaculate, but it is
Mhm.
beautiful. Like, and it's well done. And I think it's just got a really great design language. Like,
Mhm.
the enemies are cool to look at. The characters are cool to look at, yeah. And it's very charming in that regards. I think the soundtrack is phenomenal. Like,
Okay.
it's not like it tends to be a little more operatic or symphonic, and it's not like, cuz I think in a lot of modern JRPGs and modern turn-based games, we're used to more like sort of a rock, like guitars, like get you amped up, get into the fight, kind of like get pumped up to beat the boss, where this
Right.
tends to be a little more somber, a little more contemplative, a little more reflective, with a few exceptions. And there's just something, I think, that sort of that classes things up a little bit. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? In the sense
Mhm.
like it, and again, so I think most JRPGs, and I love a lot of them, but they feel like they're sort of targeted for like teens or maybe people in their
Sure.
20s.
Yeah.
And this feels like a game that sort of like pays a little bit of an homage to that stuff, but at the same time acknowledges like this is a turn-based or a JRPG for grown-ups.
Okay.
And and again, sort of in just the scope and scale and the time commitment, I think thematically, I think
Mhm.
design wise, across the board. I just think it's targeted at adults. It respects an adult consumer. And I'm not saying that somebody younger couldn't play it and enjoy it, but I think it sort of is unapologetically a little bit mature and not in a grotesque sort of like gritty, let's rub some dirt and blood and boobs on it kind of thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think the sort of my last sort of argument or appeal is, and again, it is not a perfect game. There are some like warts. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The platforming in this game sucks. Like I'm actually
Mm-hmm.
really angry because not
Oof.
really angry, but there's a trophy that is tied to some platforming sequences, and I'm not excited about tackling that
Yeah.
um, at all. The combat though is immaculate. Like it's just like it's great.
Awesome.
Like it
Yeah.
it feels like when you get into it, and again, I wish they would have leaned more into like the Shadow Hearts kind of like convention,
Sure.
with just sort of really incorporating a lot more of the timing based stuff. But the dodge and parry system is chef kiss. Like once you get into it, you're like, oh, like this is like the coolest thing in the world.
Sweet.
But yeah, and they, like I said, there's some narrative steps. I think though this is all undergirded by the fact that this was done by a smaller studio, right now,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
and there are around 30 people at Samfall. Now we do have to recognize too
Okay.
that there was probably a good bit of contract work brought in on that, but this
Mhm.
was still a smaller team, smaller development, and just sort of like smaller scope and scale. And I think like, and especially coming from like a rookie studio,
Right.
the like it was basically a guy worked at Ubisoft. He got bored and said like, like, hey, to some of his friends, and then to a bunch of strangers he met on the internet, let's make a
Yeah.
video game. And they did, and it's awesome. It's
Yeah.
so good. It's so stinking good. And I don't think you can separate that. Like that to me is
Hmm.
like that is part of the thing that I love about this medium.
Yeah.
Like a game that we've talked about before, and I'm very fond of, but as time goes on, like I cool a lot more on it, but it's like Horizon Zero Dawn, where it's like the
Mm.
thing that I really love about that is that Guerrilla was a first person shooter studio, and they did this hard pivot into sort of a genre that they had little to no experience in.
Yeah.
Right. And they build this 3D like this third person over the shoulder open world game. And granted, like the story in Horizon Zero Dawn, I think it's pretty mid. It's like sci-fi. It's sci-fi slop. It's not bad, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just like it's not the first time I've read or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's but or come across something like that in sci-fi. But it's a cool world, it's like robot dinosaurs. That's sick. Robot dinosaurs
Mm-hmm.
that you can sort of blow apart and then use their stuff like almost like Legos to like do other stuff with. Like there's a lot of really cool systems in that.
Mm-hmm.
But like what's kind of really kind of impressive about that again is the pivot to just like the to the open world over the third person kind of action adventure thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so it's like those stories are just as much a part of like video games and why I love video games as like
Okay.
seeing like these sort of
Yeah.
like these really cool little triumphs and like these really like I love a good Dark Horse story. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like everybody was like like I think there wasn't a person like I think every time I talked about Clair Obscur prior to its release, I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
think this just looks really cool. I hope it's as good as it looks. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like everybody was like rooting for this, but there's always that like cuz like how many times have we seen like really cool stuff and then it comes out and it's like, "Oh, well, like
Yeah.
like it's like fine or it's like, whatever." But this kind of like it kind of and I think that's part of like the hype around it too though. It's like
Sure.
it looked cool, everybody was rooting for it, and then it was actually good. It was like really good. It wasn't just like passable. It was like, no, this is kind of great.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it's like you take all of those things, and it's not like the story is like the most impactful story I've ever experienced in video games. I think it's a good story. I think it's a great story. I
Okay.
do think there's it's sort of like there's some narrative choices that sort of undercut it. but I still think it's a great story. And I think it's like, it's just a really cool thing.
Mhm.
And so I've sort of laid out again my spoiler free thoughts on this game, where I just think like in a lot of ways it just demonstrates a pretty sound technical excellence
Mhm.
with one or two omissions. Right? Again, 3D platforming is such garbage. It's like just. And like what sucks is like they have like really cool traversal methods. They're like,
Okay.
hey, let's make you do the worst part of this game. And I'm like, no, no, thank
Why?
you. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Can we not? And tech and that's the nice part about even that is that it's purely optional. Like
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
95% of the game does not require you to do that. So it's just like it is the optional stuff. So all that being said,
Gotcha.
so I've laid out my heart here,
Mhm.
and I'm going to. This is my proposition.
Okay.
I think it belongs in the top 25 at spot 25. Now, currently, that spot is held
Mhm.
by Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Mhm.
What I think needs to happen is Diablo 4 needs to come down,
Okay.
and Xenoblade Chronicles would move up to 24, and uh, Clair Obscure Expedition 33 would sit in at 25.
Okay. You know what, man? That is a very reasonable request. I thought I was going to have to fight and ask some questions about these games around here, but being right next to Xenoblade is actually, I think, the perfect spot for it because these are both games that the other one of us have not played, but we are very, what we
And they're
liked. I was
both,
going to say we're
and
very
that puts
passionate
them
about.
right underneath Near, which is a game that we also recognize as like a pretty pivotal. Like that's a key game for us.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like that a lot. Yeah, yeah. So, but we would be adding a game to the list. Now we could easily, take something away from the bottom of the list. Um, well, I suppose that's what we'd have to do because the other questions that I've had of some games that are surrounding this, and it's not something we don't have to talk
I
extensively.
have, I already have the Sacrificial Lamb lined up.
Okay, okay. What is that?
Slot number 82 is NBA Jam, and I
Okay.
have been the one who has argued for that game staying on the list.
Mhm.
But as we sort of talk about things, and again, it's sort of the idea of accessibility.
Yeah.
NBA Jam is not an accessible game at all. Like short of you having a Super Nintendo or emulation or Sega Genesis, you cannot play this game. Okay.
Mhm.
I do want to see something like that stay. You know what I'm saying? Like I would
Right.
love a reality in that we get like a new NBA Jam that is a lot of fun because I like sports games, but I tend to like them to be a little more arcadey and a little less reverent. But
Mhm.
I think, given sort of the fact that we have talked about accessibility and a lack of accessibility as sort of being a disqualifying, marker, that NBA Jam, I think, just needs to come off the list. So
Okay. Okay. That's fair. That's fair. I'm not going to put up a fight because, frankly, I have not played much, if any, at all of NBA Jam, which I know is like a travesty. Um, yeah, because it's been on our list for quite a while. But I think you make a good argument there. I'm being very, I'm just like agreeing with everything you're saying, man. This is kind of
that's
strange.
because I'm very
Um,
SMRT and persuasive.
Yeah, you present good arguments and some good rationalization around it. And while, yeah, I do have some question about some other games, they do not pertain to this list of games that we've brought to the table, these games that we've played this year, and where we want to slot it there. So it makes sense that some of the other questions that I have would come at our end of year, kind of making everything official. But for where we stand right now, I think, again, I think it's a very reasonable request, and I like the thought process behind putting Clair Obscure right there with Xenoblade because We've also okay. I'll just reveal some inside baseball here. Is that we have both encouraged the other to play those games because we feel so highly about them,
Hmm.
for maybe not similar reasons, but they are very parallel. The one of the parallels I had with a friend of mine were some horror movies that we both each equally liked and encouraged the other to see, and lo and behold, they were for some very similar reasons. They're very, very dark movies. So I don't necessarily want to recommend to everyone's viewing, but they are very well done, very dark, very much the bad guy wins,
Mm.
cautionary tale movies. And lo and behold, they both ended up being very similar in their arcs, and that was The Witch is what I had recommended that he watch, and he
The
recommended that I
Vitch.
watch. Yes, yes, The Witch, and the one that he recommended was Hereditary, and so they both have some very similar, very, very dark. So again, not recommending them, but I'm saying that this runs kind of parallel to that of games we both very much enjoy that have shot up to the top of our personal lists, and that, frankly, we will be playing on our own time in the not too distant future. I say that as an old
So
man.
we need to. So the only sort of thing is, again, I talked about displacing Diablo 4.
Hmm.
And I love Diablo 4. I think it's a great
Okay.
game. I think it's like a
Yeah.
very like great like kind of like loot action RPG, kind of
Hmm.
like just vibes. But the further I get away from that, I will probably go back to it at some point in time,
Okay.
but it definitely sort of it to me the farther out I get from it, it's like it's not. I do think it is a game that is a game that I highly recommend, that
Hmm.
I'm just like, it captures a very unique sort of thing. But I do think it needs to be dropped significantly.
Okay.
I'm just going to sort of say, like, right now, I think it belongs. I'm just kind of looking at the list, and I would
Hmm.
probably put it at currently 45 as Horizon Zero Dawn. I
Okay.
think just slot it in right there.
Okay.
Um,
Can I make a recommendation,
yeah,
actually?
yeah.
Because a few slots up from that, number 41 is Journey. And while I don't
You
think
mean
that
40?
Journey.
Okay. Well,
Oh,
I'm looking at
sorry.
the
Yeah. You
42.
got. Yes, you're right. You're right. While I don't think this is necessarily like a mind-blowing game that, the once you play this, then everything's gonna change. I would actually make an argument for it being in kind of the canon of video games, of
Yeah.
because of its short length and because it is like hero's journey distilled into a video game, and because it does some amazing things with having you attached to another player character that you don't even know. um, I think all of that actually pushes it up higher in the list for the criteria that we have for this list. I would recommend Journey to anyone, and so
Hmm.
I think it should be higher on the list. So what do you say we switch it with Journey?
That I'm okay with that. But do you want Journey in at 24 currently, or
I would
would
put it
maybe
beneath those two that we just talked about, but then that's Persona 3.
that puts
Oh,
it above Persona
love Persona
3
3.
3?
Above Tears of the Kingdom.
I've got, you know what? Maybe it becomes the new 28, right
Okay.
above Spec Ops: The Line.
Okay.
Spec Ops is starting to sort of enter into that dangerous territory where it's like accessibility is going to become a
That's
pretty
true. Yeah.
accessibility, like, and that's the thing. Accessibility is like, I think moving forward, that is something that we need to consider. Like, if these games aren't sort of like fairly accessible,
Hmm.
I mean, frankly, that's why we pulled some, like, that's why Overwatch got pulled off the list, because there's no way to play Overwatch anymore.
Hmm.
Um, I'm actually like, I think I want Diablo underneath Death Stranding.
Okay. That's kind of surprising to hear, just because I know how much you love the Diablo series in general.
I
That Death
do.
Stranding is better in your
I do think,
estimation.
like, I would, it's like one of those games, like Death Stranding is a lot harder to, like, it's a lot more esoteric,
Yeah.
right? But I do like, you're like, I would say like Diablo 4 is much more, it's just great video game, right?
Right. Yeah.
Whereas Death Stranding is kind of like prestige art PC kind of stuff.
Okay.
But the current 45 is Horizon Zero Dawn.
Okay.
And I really love that game,
Mhm.
but it is sort of like I said, I think the story is kind of just like Final Fantasy slop. The story is like whatever.
Mhm.
Frankly, I'm just kind of looking here. Like the one that kind of pops out to me is just like I'm like I think it's a really great open world game.
Mhm.
I just don't think that, like, frankly, it is not and I don't think it's, where's Ghost of Tsushima? I know
That's at
that's on there.
59. Well, it was at 59. So it's around there.
I would just straight up swap those two.
Okay.
Like Ghost is a game that the farther I sit back from it, the more appreciation I have for it.
Okay.
And yeah. So like I think Ghost is probably, yeah, because Ghost kind of almost works its way. Sometimes there are times where you could catch me and Ghost might be in my top 10.
Okay.
Just because here's the thing, like it is hard to say, like Ghost of Tsushima is like if Ubisoft made a game that was just not bloated and gross.
Yeah.
Like like it's elegant in how it handles like navigation and map stuff, and it's like there's still a ton of stuff to do. But yeah, so that, yeah, I think that's, yeah, I like Horizon Zero Dawn. I like Ghost of Tsushima way more than I like Horizon Zero Dawn. So that's,
Nice.
so I think just as far as like sort of and again sort of as a just a rough draft sort of in heading into the back half of the year, that this is a sort of this is a good sort of, this is a good draft.
Mhm.
So is there anything on here that you think we need to talk about before we sort of just wrap this up, or can we kind of just,
So, besides any other questions that we may have, my only recommendation that comes to the forefront of my mind right now is to swap out Shin Megami Tensei 5 with Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. I have not played Vengeance, but it's basically just the definitive edition of the game. Like, it adds content. So, there's no way that the original could be better than Vengeance. So, that's my recommendation. But it's not a big
well,
deal. It's just what I've heard is that version of the game is much better in how it handles the story.
what I'm gonna do is I added some question marks,
Okay.
and we're gonna make it this color so that we maybe pay attention to it.
Mm,
And we can revisit it at the end of the year, perhaps.
sweet.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking here. We talked about the Stanley Parable. I did play Mega Man
Sure.
X this year. Do need to just put that on my. I need to update my GG list.
Okay.
Talos Principle. We did play Talos Principle. I think you liked it, but didn't really feel like it. I just flat out, like, I respect what it is.
Hmm.
I did not have a good time with it.
Yeah.
Like, and so, but yeah, I don't have like there's nothing on the list that looks to me like it needs to be adjusted or wrestled with.
Hmm.
Currently, I do have a couple of like there's some stuff on here where I'm like asking questions. Well, okay. So Mario, here's just something to
Hmm.
think about. I haven't played it, but Mario Kart World
Mhm.
versus Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Yeah. So my initial playing of Mario Kart World after, 5 days that I've had the Switch 2
Mm-hmm.
is that while I am having an absolute blast with Mario Kart World, I would hold off on replacing it because Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has so much content because it has been updated for the past 10 years,
Yeah, pretty much.
since it came out on Wii U. So there is much more there. Frankly, there are so many more
There's just a
courses.
wealth of content and
Right.
tracks and racers and options.
I foresee them doing that with Mario Kart World. The whole thing about the world is that you have a map and there is like these different areas that you're in. I can see them adding, other islands or other areas and things like that down the road. And in those cases, while again, I'm just having an absolute blast with the game, I really enjoy it. I like what they've done with it. There's already a lot of content. It is not at the level of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and I think there's something about Mario Kart 8 Deluxe that has made it um, uh, best in class of Mario Kart, but also, it's probably a lot of kids' first entry into the series. I'm not ready to dethrone it just yet.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
No, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I'm kind of like, I haven't played it yet, so I don't have an opinion,
Mhm.
but I do think it's sort of like it's time. Like it's time on the list. While it may not be like imminently sort of dethroned,
Mhm.
I think there will be a point where it's like we will have to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
there was a couple things.
And insofar as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is kind of a stand-in for the whole series, like, yes,
Mhm.
there are deviations throughout it. I wouldn't recommend everyone go back and play the first one. It's kind of rough. It's still fun, don't get me wrong, but it's
Yeah,
rough, especially
yeah.
compared to the new ones. But it is pretty much like, hey, I was going to say pick your poison, but that sounds like a bad thing. Like, you're going to have a good time if you're playing Mario Kart. Like, pick a Mario Kart and play it.
Yeah. 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 100%. Yeah, I just, like I said, I know with the release of the new Mario Kart, it's like at some point in time we are going to have to like wrestle with that question.
Mhm.
Um we've got Neo 2 sort of here in blue.
Yep.
Well, you need to play that at some point in time.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah.
um, just a game to sort of like throw out there. It's like I think Titanfall 2 is like one of the best shooters. Possibly it's one like I just love that game, but it's
Yeah.
like it's sort of like it's maybe take it into consideration.
Mhm.
Sort of like look at that. I'm just kind of like going through here. We got Batman Arkham City.
Mhm.
Um I don't know. There's stuff here that like, and again, I think like the big one that I'm kind of like looking at, and I'm actually going to do this is like, and I'm not saying that we even need to do anything with it this year, but Spec Ops: The Line.
Yeah.
The more as we talked about, sort of the idea of accessibility. Um, that is a game that unless you own a copy on Steam already, or you have a copy on PS3 and a working PS3 or 360, I guess, because I think it was on the 360 as well. But like, it's not a game you can get a hold of. Um, and even though it is kind of brilliant, and I think it's like it's just like it's almost like there's almost this part of me. It's like maybe part of even sort of like that can be sort of honorable mention material at some point in time. That
Okay.
like
Yeah.
that may sort of be a targetable spot. Like, and it kind of breaks my heart because I really do think that game's something pretty special. But it's like if these are the 100 games that you should be playing, that we think you should play, but people can't really play it, that does raise questions. Um,
Yeah.
um,
Interesting.
I'm kind of there's that. I'm just kind of. I feel like there was something in here something else that caught my eye, but now I'm just kind of like,
Okay.
oh, Well, there is one thing on here that I think is sort of interesting news. I don't know if you had seen this, but
Mm-hmm.
Final Fantasy Tactics is number 20 on our list,
Right.
and the remaster remake has been announced, and it will be coming out
Mm-hmm.
in September of this year. So I think that's exciting on a lot of levels. Um, yeah, like one, it's going to be available on modern hardware, which
Right.
is really pretty rad. But also that means that it does sort of dodge the accessibility bullet.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
so I'm
Yeah.
excited about that. I'll probably be buying. I'm not going to lie. I'm probably going to buy that and then
Yeah.
never play it. um, but yeah, I don't have any, like, I think, like I said, my big thing was just coming in here, and I do feel like I came in kind of guns blazing for
Yeah.
Claire Obscure,
Yeah.
but like, yeah.
But I find it to be very reasonable, since Xenoblade was allowed to be that high. So yeah, it works for me for sure.
Yeah.
And all the other kind of questions or things to kick around that I have for the list are really more for kind of the finalization. So, for instance, like, hey, Street Fighter Alpha 2, I love that game. But that is also kind of a placeholder for fighting games in general. Is there a better fighting game? Like, is there something
A
that
better, more accessible fighting game, yeah.
sure, yeah. I mean, that one's pretty. Capcom, I mean, re-releases their games and collections all over the
That's
place.
yeah, that's probably available in a collection somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, I have it on Switch on the like their first fighting collection, and I say that they have different titles for all kinds because I've got my eye on their Marvel versus Capcom fighting collection. So I don't remember what it's called, but there's a Street Fighter collection that has a bunch of those games, including Alpha 2 on it. Um, so there's stuff like that. Astral Chain, should that move to honorable mention till after we play it? Well, that's going to be a moot point because we're going to play it before the end of the year. So
Mm-hmm.
there's that. Some of the other questions are kind of for games that are higher up on the list, and just seeing, like, do we still agree with some of these placements. I really like well, I'd say I really enjoyed my time playing through BioShock. Does it deserve number 9? That might be something we can revisit at the end of the year. I still haven't played God of War Ragnarok. Do you still think that holds up at number 19? Again, something that we can discuss at the end of the year. It doesn't have to be right now. So those are some of the questions that I have, but again, not something to nail down now. I think we've done a good job of bringing to the table what we've played so far this year. I'm stoked. We still have quite a while before the year's out, both between patron picks and locked and loaded picks. That I've got Slay the Spire on mine, so maybe that'll shoot up
Oh,
the
dude,
list. We'll
that
see.
game is like, I recognize that, like, deck builders represent, like, a certain, like, those things, they get their hooks into me, like,
Yeah,
hardcore.
for sure.
But I hope when you get to that game, I hope that you love it, because, like,
Yeah,
I think it's something pretty special.
sweet.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, like, that's a pretty good sort of just where we're sitting right now. I kind
Mm-hmm.
of like, I like the look at this right now. And yeah, we'll kind of, yeah. So why don't we, like, I'm just gonna rip out the honorable mentions here, and then we can sort of just go through the the top 100 here, and the tentative top 100. So at 101 we've got the Outer Wilds, 102 is Overwatch, 103 is Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, Pokemon Legends Arceus is sitting at 104 right now, and the Banner Saga at 105. But the eternal, the immortal, the always, forever and ever, until Jesus comes back or something just absolutely blows our mind. But number 100 is River City Ransom.
Number 99 is Bravely Default.
98 is Slay the Spire.
97 is the Metal Slug Collection.
96 Vampire Survivors.
Number 5 is Taiko no Tatsujin Rhythm Festival.
No, 94. Geez, Nate talk pretty someday. Not tonight. We're just we're too late, and we still got to record a bro hang. 94 is Faith the Unholy Trinity.
93 is Silent Hill 2.
92, The Stanley Parable.
91 is Baldur's Gate 2.
90 is Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice.
89 is Shovel Knight.
88, Bomberman Generations.
87 is Portal.
86, Katamari Damacy.
85 is Katana Zero.
84, Celeste.
83 is The Wolf Among Us.
82, Donkey Kong 94.
81 is XCOM 2.
80 is Astral Chain.
79 is Halo 2.
78 is Titanfall 2.
77 is Bubble Bobble.
76 is Mike Tyson's Punch-Out.
75 is the Nonary games.
74 is Hyper Light Drifter.
73 is Neo 2.
72 is Rogue Legacy.
71 is Shin Megami Tensei 4.
70 is What Remains of Edith Finch.
69 is Kirby Superstar.
68 is Elden Ring.
67 Persona 5 Royal.
66 Borderlands 2.
65 Animal Crossing New Horizons.
64 Metroid Prime.
63 Dragon Quest 8.
62 SMT Devil Survivor OC.
Yeah, 61 is Batman Arkham City.
60 is Horizon Zero Dawn.
59 is Pikmin 3.
58 is Super Mario 3D World.
57 is Psychonauts.
56 Super Mario RPG.
55 is Star Fox 64.
54 Street Fighter Alpha 2.
53 is Castle Crashers.
52 Rocket League.
51 is Destiny 2.
50 is Tecmo Super Bowl.
49 is Mother 3.
48 is Super Metroid.
47 is Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance.
46 is Dishonored.
45 is Ghost of Tsushima.
44 is Diablo 4.
43 is Death Stranding.
42 is Resident Evil 2 Remake.
41 is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
40 with an asterisk is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
39 is Control.
38 is Legend of Zelda Wind Waker.
37 is Ori and the Blind Forest.
At 36, we have Octopath Traveler.
35 Dragon Quest 5.
Yoshi's Island is at 34.
33 is Final Fantasy 9.
32 is Doom.
Yep. 31 is Super Mario Bros. Wonder.
30 is Dead Space.
29 Spec Ops: The Line.
28 Journey.
27 is Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
26 is Persona 3 Fess and Reload.
25 is Claire Obscure Expedition 33.
24 is Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
23 is Nier Automata.
22 Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening.
21 is Mega Man 2.
Final Fantasy Tactics at 20.
19 is God of War Ragnarok.
And God of War 2018 at 18.
17 is Dragon Quest 11S.
16 is Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
15 is BioShock Infinite.
Spider-Man from 2018 is at 14.
Number 13 is Mega Man X.
Resident Evil 4 is number 12.
Number 11 is The Last of Us.
At 10, it's Super Mario Galaxy.
Number 9 is BioShock.
8 is Tetris Effect.
Number 7 is Hades.
6 is Hollow Knight.
5 is Bloodborne.
Final Fantasy 4 is at 4.
That's 6.
Oh, geez. Roman numerals. Blurp. It is Final Fantasy 6. Oh, my. Paul he probably just
He's
did like a little
cheering
dance.
right
He's like,
now.
yes, finally.
Yeah.
No, it is 6. Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry, Paul.
Shadow of the Colossus is number 3.
Chrono Trigger is number 2 with a bullet, baby.
And number 1, the top of our top 100 list is Super Mario Brothers 3. Because of course it is.
It's
What
the
a
greatest game. It's the GOAT, baby.
What a
the
game.
GOAT.
Yeah, man.
But all that being said, Josh, it has been a night here. We still
has.
have some things to do.
We do.
But before we sort of wrap this up, we do have a couple forms to just sort of knock out real quick here.
That's
Do
true.
you have anybody to shout out?
I do, and this is someone who probably it's about time to probably change the handle in Discord. But he is a friend of ours.
Je refuse.
He contributes, often in Discord and has made his way onto the
Contributes?
podcast.
I feel like that's a strong word.
There's some contribution, and I'd like to shout out Notice Me Sonichu Senpai. I don't even like saying that into a microphone.
Good. You're
so I
not
think
supposed to
that
like it.
that should be changed. But he has been updating us in his progress through Hollow Knight and trying to get a lot of that game that, like, frankly, I have not even touched. So it's been fun to kind of see him give those updates and the difficulties of that game and dig into it more than even I have, even though we have this listed as number 6. So shout out to you, Notice Me Senpai.
No, Jake. All right. Josh
Yeah, man.
has he's interceded on your behalf.
I have noticed you.
He has noticed you, and he has looked upon you with favor. That being said, we will receive petitions to allow you to change your handle in the Discord. But this is probationary. If it's anything too weeby or trashy, like, we will heap scorn. I don't know. But yeah, no, like, hey, you're right. He has sort of sat under the burden of that title for quite some time. And he is, and you know what? I think we just need it. Like, he's borne it nobly. Kind of.
He has been noticed.
He has been noticed. So yeah. All right. We will take petitions. Don't make it too weird. That being said, I just want to shout out our patrons. We haven't done this in a while. But like, these are guys who have partnered with us and sort of just, and I think it cannot be understated that without their support, without their encouragement and their contributions, I don't know that the breakdown would, it would probably still be here, but I think, like, these guys, all in all, like, it's just like, not just the financial, but just like the psychological and emotional support that these guys have sort of like, and the encouragement, it cannot be understated. And so I just want to, I'm just going to go through and I'm going to read off our patrons. And
Yes.
we'll just want to give a shout out to Micah Hendrick, aka Micah Gear Solid, Wesley Ray, the Henshin Dad himself, the Techno Funk Boy, the Trash Turkey, Dorian Taylor, Aaron Call, or aka the Judge, Mark Kozlowski, Alex Castellanos, Porcho, the Wonder from Down Under, Nate Foote, aka the Imposter Nate, Mark Erickson, Sojourner, Push Broom 101, Arcone Lightwave, Boulder, Josh Ortiz, Pyrulian, and Reed Butterfield. Yeah, you guys rock. You guys, and again, it's like, we really appreciate not only the financial support, but just your encouragement, and and your participation in the community. So you guys, shout out.
Real
And
ones.
I will like, this will be the year that I will do some, like, patron exclusive swag. Like, I've talked about this and doing some things, but this is going to be the year. So I'm going to make it happen, guys. And if not, I don't know. Like, I'll tell you what, if I don't release some sort of patron swag, this is what I will say, is that I will let the patrons vote on my name in the Discord server.
Oh, I thought you were going to say which Pokemon game to play.
Oh, no. Like, no, that's stupid. I wouldn't do that. It's bad enough I have to play Arceus. But they can sort of make a decision to, name me something awful. And I will abide by that until I rectify the situation.
Hmm.
So that being said,
I like that.
well, our last form for the evening is it's the last episode of the month, and so we have to just there's a question that we need to be asked that
That's
we
right.
need to ask in order to ask some other questions.
Hmm. Ask you to ask us. But that
We're
question
asking you
is,
to ask us questions.
yeah.
What is your quest?
Sean, what is your question for us? We received a few questions, and so we're going to bring them to the table and kick them around for a little bit. The question that I chose that I wanted to talk about was from McKelvey in our Discord. He asks, "Is character development essential for a good character or story?" Is character development essential for a good character or story? And there was some really good interaction, and so really I'm just kind of reiterating some of that. But as I think about that as well, is it absolutely essential? I would say no. I think it's often the most interesting when you do have character development. Um, and I guess there's a caveat. I'm speaking of the main character doesn't necessarily need to have a ton of growth if they stick to their ideals throughout the course of a story, of a video game story. Even when it's even when they face hardship and trials and their ideals win the day and they hold on to them stronger, that is not necessarily character growth, but it is very engaging. So you think of someone like Link in The Legend of Zelda. Link doesn't really change throughout his games, uh, but you still root for him because he's the good guy. He wants to help the princess. I was thinking about it, weird things that I think about. But even Legend of Zelda doesn't have necessarily an element of romance in it. It is much more akin to like chivalry, I would say, of hey, this is my role is to protect and serve my princess, not necessarily a romantic relationship. So I think that Link is a very admirable character, and so it is not strictly necessary that your character has to have a lot of development and has to change in order to be compelling, in order to be a good character or make a good story. I think it's the kind of things surrounding him, the things that he faces that determine whether or not. Now, I do like characters that change, that
Mm-hmm.
grow, that when faced with trials actually have to abandon and sharpen their ideals or change their mind. Those are very compelling as well. So it can go either way. You do have to be careful with both ways, but yeah, I would say no, it's not strictly essential. Do you have any
Yeah.
further thoughts?
No, not really. It is desirable but not essential.
Hmm.
And I think, just to sort of give like, not really a shout out, but Jono's response to him in talking about flat characters, and he
Hmm.
mentions Goku and Luffy, right?
Yeah.
And that these are characters that in a lot of ways the world just reacts to them. And that's sort of
Hmm.
like they don't really change.
Yeah.
Um and I think that is those can be compelling. Those can it depends on how the like a character doesn't need to be super fleshed out or super dimensional. It just has to be written well or developed well. Like does that make sense? And I think that's um there's a difference between that. Like flat just talks about like the fact that there's not in a lot of ways a lot to them. Like Luffy is just a good dude who likes to eat and loves his friends. And that's like and actually kind of the same thing about like Goku. Like he loves his friends and his
Yeah.
family and he
There you go.
likes to eat. Like there's not a lot going on, but they're just good dudes. Um and that can be aspirational in a lot of ways. Like
Yeah.
I think it
Yeah.
cannot be undersold, like again, like the importance of Goku. Like Goku is basically a national treasure in Mexico. Like they love him
Yeah.
because he's a dude who loves his family and he eats and he's just a baller.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes I think that actually sometimes like we in an effort to kind of be, or at least put on the appearance of being like more mature or grittier or deeper than we actually are.
Mhm.
Sometimes like we try to like assign more to things than should be. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
I would just say like, no, it's not necessary. Sometimes it depends, and it's contextual. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but like sometimes, yeah, given the context, you don't always need like a super deep or profound character. So yeah,
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
yeah.
Good stuff, man. Did you have a question to bring to the table?
I mean, John was really the only one who submitted anything, and
Yeah.
I just sort of I did want to sort of this week. So shame on the rest of you. How dare
Oh,
you?
ouch.
How dare
Yikes.
you? Um, but he just asked the other question that John asked in the what is your question channel is there something that you used to do that's video game related that you don't do
Mhm.
anymore? And it brought up a lot of question or a lot of conversation like in regards to like video game rentals, video game
Yeah.
magazines, and I would just say like both of those are sort of like key things for me. I'll tell you what. There's one that I didn't see anybody comment on, but was
Okay.
like the really nice paperback strategy guides or
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
like you know how like there was always like if there was a game like I was like super hyped about like my I had like the ritual. I'd get the game, and then as soon as the nice strat guide came out, the nice like sort of like trade paperback whatever whatever like the nice strat guide came out, like I would usually pick that up. And sometimes it was like I didn't even tend to open it. It just felt nice to have that as like part of
Mhm.
like that felt like part of like the a lot of times I did use them too, but it's like it's like, and I still have some of those. So
Mhm.
it's like,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me, it was like that sort of like that kind of like getting the physical strategy guide to go
Mhm.
along, like as a companion piece, you know. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. I didn't own a ton of strategy guides myself. They were a little bit, I would say, frivolous, but they were always so much fun to flip through.
Hmm.
Like yeah, seeing the different artwork and things like that, and yeah, nailing down which you don't have. So that I think that's a great answer to that, because I agree. I had Nintendo Power as a kid. I loved that. I don't know that I'd really have time for it now, that I'd really care to subscribe to something like that, but I do fondly remember it. What's that?
As sort of a case in point, like I prior to its closing and then reopening, then closing and reopening again, I had a subscription to Game Informer for years,
Mhm.
and I think I probably read that magazine. Like I was like always like as a general rule, it's like, oh, like yeah, cool, new issue of Game Informer. Like I can read about video games, and I like video games.
Mhm.
I did not read those
Yeah.
often.
Yeah.
Like it was mostly just like a time thing where it's like, and it's like if I have free time, it's like instead of reading a magazine about video games, I'm just gonna go play them. Um,
Yeah.
so
For sure. There's that. I rental the going to the video store and renting games was another big part. That's how I learned about a lot of games too. But again, something like that, I don't know that I would necessarily want to bring it back. I'm just more in the know nowadays, and so it doesn't seem like that would be kind of very helpful to the way that I play video games. And now I have the library, and there's GameFly and things like that if you really want to go that route. But I can also just research stuff. What I'll say, the other thing for me, at least where I was growing up, is I felt like there used to be a lot more video game shops. And there, I remember a specific one. Not all of them were this way, but there was a specific one that I would go to. I would ride my bike with my brothers. It wasn't too far away. That had all their NES games were $5 each. And so while they did certainly have their premium games, they had this video game shop had games from older systems all the way up to kind of current gen, And it felt like the shop was really geared towards the games, and if you only had a few dollars, you could still walk away with something. And that's something that I feel has gotten kind of lost in the sauce nowadays, where you've got your GameStop that is 60% merchandise and 40% game, and only half the games have like box art now. I feel like it's all kind of like, kind of the generic um slips that they print out. It just
Mhm.
it's not as inspiring to walk into a GameStop anymore. Maybe they do have a $5 bin, but like it's harder to tell what you're getting because it's all so generic looking. So, I do miss, part of it's probably nostalgia, but I do miss the video game shops that are in it for the love of the games, that don't feel like they have to push, you know, a super rare $150 PS2 game on you, where maybe that's there, but it's not like the bulk of what they do. They could still sell cheap games.
And some like an additional experience that I kind of miss from like just video game stores is like I had a period of time for a few years where I worked part time at a GameStop,
Hmm.
but I just remember like even before I got a job there, just going in and just shooting the breeze with other gaming enthusiasts, other
Yeah.
gamers,
Hmm.
and it's like those used to be like places to have conversations about games,
Yeah.
you know, either with the staff or with other, you know, hobbyists.
Yeah.
And just like those spaces don't really exist. And it's kind of weird now that I'm thinking about it. It's like we stopped in, there's actually like sort of it's a local sort of franchise thing. It's like a little
Okay.
mom and pop shop, but they've got a few locations in the area.
Nice.
And we stopped in, just because I was just sort of asking questions. Um and there was somebody, and this maybe this is just gonna like I'm gonna out myself as just such a giant nerd. um uh, but you guys are listening to this, you already know this.
Yeah. You know we have a video game
Like
podcast.
you know me, but we were in there and they had these like, and it obviously had to be like a repro cart for Mother
Okay.
3.
Hmm.
um and they had it for sale, and this kid was asking questions, and the guy behind the counter was like, he's like, I don't know, he's like, I've never played this. And I was like, I have. and and
Hmm.
I talked to this kid for the next like 15-20 minutes, and I sort of like walked him
Nice.
through it. And I said, like, listen, you probably want to play Earthbound before you play this. You don't really need to play Mother 1. Mother
Yeah.
1 is in some ways just kind of like Earthbound is in some ways a better version of Mother. Um, kind of, but like Mother's like, it's an interesting game. Like if you love Earthbound and you want to go back and revisit Mother, that's fine, but it's not necessary. And
Hmm.
I said, here's the other thing to understand though. I said that cart, that's not like a licensed cart. Like
Hmm.
that's a repro, or that's a
Yeah.
just that's a hacked. Yeah, that's a hacked cart, if or whatever. I said, like,
Right.
I said, I own a copy of this game. And I said, and I bought it from AliExpress years ago. Like, and I said, but it's got the English translation patch baked into it. And I said, but the thing is, this game never came to the States. So
Hmm.
if that's in English, like I said, if you buy that and that's in English, that's not an authentic cart. Like it's
Right.
still going to be like a cool game. You're probably still going to have a lot of fun. But if that's a legitimate cart, it's going to be in Japanese. And I just said, because there was like they like in Japan, they released like the cartridge collection, and
Right.
probably some of those did get imported. And then I talked him through all of it. I said, like, I think it's an outstanding game. I said, I think it's probably one of the, like, it's a pinnacle JRPG of that era. And I said, it's kind of
Hmm.
weird because it's locked on the Game Boy Advance. I said, in addition to that, I said, like, there are reasons that in playing that game, like, it will never be brought stateside. I
Hmm.
said, like, and I didn't tell him why or anything like that. I said,
Yeah.
but there's some cultural things, that there are some things that happen in the game that culturally just would not fly today.
Yeah.
And I said, I said, it has some of the most stunning like pixel animation I've ever seen in my life.
Hmm.
Like I just think about that scene at the beginning of the game with
Yeah.
Flint. Like that just awesome. Just like S tier kind of like work there.
Yeah.
But it's like you don't get to have those conversations anymore.
Right.
Like because those spaces don't really exist.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. It's
I
moved
miss that.
online. Yeah. Yeah.
But even online, they're not that good. Like let's just be honest. As a general rule, online, most of the time it's just edgy dorks being edgy dorks,
Mm-hmm.
and
Sure.
like any legitimate conversation, not everywhere and not all the time, but like most legitimate conversation, just kind of like that's a lot harder to foster. Anyways,
Yeah.
yeah, I just thought that, yeah, you're right though. That stuff has kind of like migrated to online spaces, but
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh man, like. And that was the reason I got a job at GameStop years ago, so that I could
Yeah.
have those conversations with people. You
Nice.
know,
That's awesome.
like yeah. Anyways, so that's something
Awesome,
else.
man. Yeah. Well, I
Yeah, it's
think
it's supposed to be that's supposed to be like a 5-minute segment. And I think we took 15 minutes.
surprise, surprise.
Yeah,
Brevity is not our strong suit.
we are really good at being bad at it. But that
Yeah.
being said, well, that pretty much is everything. We have done the forms. We have said
Mm-hmm.
the things. Josh, though, if people want to get at us, if people want to get to us, if people want to
Yeah.
sort of tell us how bad our takes are, or
Mm-hmm.
or tell us how awesome our takes are, like
What
they
should
can do
be added
both.
to the list? Yeah.
Yeah.
Why, we should change certain games. Hey, we'd actually really encourage you to reach out to us because we'd love to hear your feedback. And you can do that a number of different ways. We're all over, we have different social media accounts, is what I should say. And all the links to that is found in our Linktree, which is simply linktree.com/the backlog breakdown. So check that out. You're muted.
Yeah, I was drinking water and then I muted
Mhm.
myself so that you guys. Anyways, that being said, we have done our thing for this show tonight. It is time for us to call it. So we've done our thing. Until next time, what should they do?
Guys, keep beating down your backlogs and we'll keep breaking down the benefits. No, it didn't work.